Miss Mollie Engelhart. We are just coming off of the incredible event. Let me say, I'm always just unbelievably stoked to be on Sovereignty Ranch. Like, it feels like paradise for me. It has a special place in my heart. Obviously, I'm biased because we've done Confluence there. But even if it's not Confluence, like Food is Medicine, when I just got invited to speak at, gave a talk called What is Food? I think it kind of blew people's minds, which was great. Talked a lot about Dr. Gerald Pollack's work. And for those listening, watching, by the way, I would like to ask for some prayers for Dr. Pollack because he's dealing with a pretty significant health issue right now. Hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, most of it will have been resolved in some way, but please give up some prayers to him. But all that being said, anytime I get the chance to spend time on Sovereignty Ranch, I just love it. It's like paradise. It really is. It's incredible. And I know your whole journey of having to just leave everything from California and take a chance moving to Texas, and to see it turn into what it's turned into on that land and just see the potential of what it could become. Trying to convince you to put a basketball court on it, but we'll discuss that at another time.
I've gotten 2 bids, so
have you really?
Yeah, we're looking at it.
I appreciate that you take my suggestions seriously to that level that you're looking at putting a basketball court. With that being said, I've also had a lot of people say that having a 3-on-3 basketball tournament during Confluence would be really cool. So maybe we'll do a basketball court. But I just appreciate everything you do, and I always wonder, and I'm sure you get this all the time, how the hell are you a mom of 4, a devoted mom of 4, devoted wife, a devoted, mother, like I said, just wrote a book and running a 240-acre ranch. And it's not like you've had this ranch for 20 years, so it's like nothing needs to be done and it's just sort of turnkey. It's you're doing work. You're like leading a whole team of people running a ranch. And it's like, I guess that's a good question to start with. How the hell do you do that?
I've just been blessed with this kind of energy, and my mind never stops, and I'm always going. And sometimes it's a curse for sure when my husband just wants to hang out and watch something on TV, and I'm like my mind is going and going. But I've just been blessed with that kind of energy. And my greatest joy in this life after my children is bringing things forth into shape, form, and experience. And as our world becomes more and more and more digital, we have less and less that we have to do something and to get that feeling of accomplishment. Like, oh, I made a post on Instagram and it got 50,000 views or 100,000 views or whatever. And we feel like we've accomplished something. And sure, on some level, we've accomplished something, but that's not building a restaurant on a ranch out in the middle of nowhere. That's not growing a cattle herd and moving them every day, or building a restaurant in a city and then tearing that restaurant down. It takes something to build in the brick and mortar. And I think part of the problem in our society right now, why we're letting so much of our control be taken, is we aren't actually feeling. Most of us are operating in the digital. We're operating in this world that's very easy to move things around. Oh, change the website, do this. Oh, take that down, put this up. And they are not dealing with the county and the state and all these regulations and all these red tape and all these ways that they tax you additionally by making some small part of your business illegal. And so the reason I'm so passionate about not letting the bureaucracy take over our lives and not letting our freedom go is because I do work in the physical, in the brick and mortar, and I'm constantly battling the county. And I moved from California to Texas for more freedom, and I was shocked at how little freedom there actually is here and how willing people that see themselves as freedom fighters and conservatives are begging for the government's intervening in every little part of our lives.
It's so interesting because it's a perfect microcosm. I see Reese over there nodding like, yeah. It's a perfect microcosm of America in general. It's like there's this underlying sentiment of freedom that I think does exist, especially relative to other countries, right? Which is why we've still been able to preserve having our guns and things like this. And with that being said, I see that the system, so to speak, is conditioning us to accept things out of convenience in so many ways, even for those of us that espouse certain health, freedom, natural, quote unquote, values. we're being slowly conditioned into these digital systems, digital infrastructure, and just overall more convenience brought on by modern technology that is slowly chipping away at the authentic expression and felt sense of freedom, where the sentiments are still there. But it's like when you look around at how most people behave in society, they are behaving as if they're slaves. And just like you said, the people who are very gung-ho, like wearing freedom shirts on their chest, what does that even mean? Because like you said, they're calling for government intervention on a lot of things. But it's like, I don't know. I think what I want to talk about here, because I've heard you talk about this so much before, as someone who chooses to stick to your values and choose your values, even if it's, met with a lot more discomfort and inconvenience versus sticking with the easy, convenient thing. Because that's like a big thing to open up, because that also pertains to buying food and supporting local farmers.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. I think the most dangerous thing happening right now, and I tread lightly because there's so many dangerous things happening right now. But
speak about it from your perspective, though.
From my perspective, the two most dangerous things I think are happening is the digital money, digital ID, programmable money. I don't care if you call it a CBDC or you call it a digital dollar. Trump's like, I'm not going to do a CBDC. We're going to do a digital dollar. Okay, great.
I'm not going to do a 15-minute city. I'm going to do a Trump city.
A Trump city, right? Yeah. Exactly. So I would say that I can't even file my taxes without doing a biometric like scan of my face. And then I did for multiple years be able to do it without doing it and send in the whole big tax return. And then that turns into, well, no, they just keep sending it back to you and telling like it's not received and blah, blah, blah. So they're just forcing us out of convenience to do these things, and we're all doing it. I said I wouldn't have a real ID, and then I moved to Texas. It turns out that all of their driver's license are real IDs. So then I somehow just opted, after years of opting out in California, I just opted in here accidentally. And then we're having a full-on agrarian collapse. So these two things are happening simultaneously. We are losing, and the numbers, people are telling you different numbers. And I'm not taking the statistics myself, but so the Farm Freedom Alliance, Ms. West says that we've lost 170,000 farms in the last 8 years. There's a widely used statistics of 140,000 farms in 10 years, and also 12,000 farms a year in the last 5 years. So these are all statistics that are out there. Whichever one is correct, we're talking about like 1 in 15 farms has been lost in the last several years.
When we say lost, do we mean like completely shut down or captured by big corporations?
Both would count. So people losing their land and it being assimilated into somebody else's, turned into tract housing or developed, or just is just foreclosed and the bank is holding it. These would all be in that category. And the amount of new farmers coming in is very low. And then the new farmers coming in, Joel, what is Aaron Martin's boyfriend's name? Joel, I can't remember his last name, wrote this open letter to Maha that was like, you guys are requesting all this organic and regenerative farming, except for regenerative farming is pulling in inspired young people and spitting them out in 6 years broke and brokenhearted. Yeah. And we need to do something about that. And so before we can even Maha or anything, if we want there to be food, that is, we are a net importer of food. So people do not think about this when you go to natural grocers, you go to HEB, you go to Whole Foods, and you see it looks like so abundant, like the most abundant food situation we've ever had in our life. But it's kind of an illusion because we have outsourced food to the cheapest hourly wage around the world. Mm-hmm. And it's also an illusion because every country has different rules around organic or different rules. So here in the United States, we have so much regulations about our food. I think the government needs to roll itself way back and get out. If I want to sell you,
Joel Salatin, then
yes, for sure. If I want to sell you some raw milk, I don't think that daddy Texas or daddy federal government needs to be between it. You can decide for you if you want to, you think that my sanitation practice is enough, and you can sign a paper or whatever, a PMA or a herd share, and say, I choose this. I don't think that we need the government in between every single thing. But what's ridiculous is, so I grew avocados in California, and you have to do these food safety inspections to sell your avocados to big. So when they go to the packing house, if you want them to be able to be sold at the best price, which would mean that the Vons and the Whole Foods and Walmarts and everything, you have to follow these food safety inspections. So food safety inspections, they're going to go in your orchard, and you're going to have to document how many coyote poops you picked up and where you put them. How did you dispose of the coyote poop? Now, you can use human manure in many other countries in organic food. Do you think that the Mexican cartels that are growing avocados are checking for coyote poop in the orchard?
Hell no.
But are those organic avocados going side by side with California organic avocados in those big retailers? Yes. The more distant we get, the more we don't know it. People used to freak out in the restaurant. How could a rock get into my black beans? And I'm like, where do they think these black beans were grown? And what do they think is happening? Like, and sometimes we'll get cacao, and it smells so smoky that you have to return it because all the food smells smoky. Well, it's because it's being processed in third world countries, and there's fires all around, and the smoke, while they're trying to dry the cacao and ferment the cacao, it's permeating the taste of the smoke. We are so disconnected from our food system. And so I take that back to, we want to be a diverse grower of food, because in the case of an emergency, it's going to be air, water, food, and then electricity, weapons, fuel, all that comes down the thing. And do I think we definitely need to keep our guns? I have very strong views on that. But we definitely need to be not a net importer of food. We need to be diverse. We can't just, like, I live here in Central Texas, and like everybody's just growing hay. Well, yes, we could live on beef only. There's lots of people that live on beef only. But I don't think that we even have enough beef to live on beef only.
Right.
We import 80% of the food to Texas from other places. We really, really, really want to relook at this. And I think that farming should be a national security issue. And so I think that, and I don't believe in government subsidies as a general rule, like up here in my highest values. But we're spending billions of dollars on government subsidies. If it's
fucking there, like, let's use it for something good,
then
right?
I want to say that I think, and this is going to sound crazy, but I think the government could do 3 sweeping things that would change everything for the health of our food and the health of our nation and farmers. Number 1, SNAP. You know what SNAP is? Welfare, like food
explain
stamps.
For those who don't know, though.
So SNAP is part of the Farm Bill. People don't know this. 80% of the Farm Bill, which is for farms, it's money that's allocated, earmarked for farms. 80% of that is the food stamp program, SNAP.
Wow.
And so when you think about that, 80% of the money coming from the Farm Bill is going to food stamps, then this is what I think. SNAP is a grant from the government, and it has nutrition in its name. The N stands for nutrition. So I think that the nutrition should be fulfilled on. So if we said right now, Mollie was queen for a day, and we said only 8 ingredients. 8 ingredients is the max amount of ingredients in any product that you can buy from SNAP, and no refined sugar, and maybe and no like other things. But let's just say, if we just said no refined sugars.
Yep.
And
no synthetic ingredients, maybe.
And maybe no synthetic ingredients, and only 8 ingredients, it would shift immediately. And if you said that you get double money when you buy whole foods, so just meat, eggs, vegetables in their whole form, brown rice, whole wheat. If you buy things in your whole form, you get double the money, which they do in 20 states at farmers markets only. But if we just made that across the board at grocery stores, at whatever, then what would happen immediately is there'd be no more food deserts. Every single small bodega, every single rural grocery store would bring in more whole ingredient foods. And it is such a huge part of the economy that all food manufacturers would shift. Tony's Pizzas and burritos and all these things would have only 8 ingredients in them.
Yep.
All of a sudden, it would come way down and there'd be way healthier food for everybody. But it wouldn't just affect, we're not just, well, why do we need to make this and for people that are too poor? No. This is going to affect everybody. This is a huge, this government subsidy. And I think that the double money for farmers, or even more than double, something, when you're buying direct from a farmer, there should be a triple or whatever, because this is money that's allocated from the farm bill. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is, we have loan products, we have banking products for military that are like 0% down and low interest rates that we have created. We have said, if you served our country, we think it's worth giving you a better rate on your house and a better lower down payment or a 0 down payment, and you don't have to pay that gap insurance from not having 20%.
0% property taxes for me here in Texas as a disabled veteran, which is super cool. 0%
property taxes. So I believe that if we made a farming banking product, that if you are a new farmer, I'm Alec, and I want to buy a farm and I want to start contributing to the local farming economy, you could get a 0% down and a very low interest rate. And here's the thing, those of us who understand how money is created, this is no loss to the bank.
No,
literally, it's a balance sheet game. So they write down that you took that money, and then they get you to give them 100% of that money, even though they didn't loan anybody that money from a pile of money. So there's no loss. This is not like, oh my God, the banks. And the reason they say that the banks don't want the farmland, they say that the banks don't want to be stuck with farmland, and that's why you need to put 30% down. I don't believe you. I think they want the consolidation of our food system. And when you have to put 30% down to get farmland, only huge corporations and very wealthy people that can pay cash can get that.
100%.
And so that is the con. So if we actually care about our food system, Trump,
everyone should.
Brooke Rollins, I'm talking to you. Then these two things would make a massive difference if we just shifted this. And then we cannot treat the soy, and let's just, one last thing is the soy and corn subsidies are massive. And right now we're being exposed. We're seeing how not resilient that is. China is in a fight about tariffs with Trump. And China is the largest buyer of soybeans in the world. Even if we captured every single other soybean customer in the world, they're like 60-something%. So we cannot make up for the 60% of all soybeans. We have maxed out the amount of products we can put soy and corn in. We've put it in everything.
Right.
And we've put it in formula. We put it in bread. We put it in food. We put it in processed food. We put it in everything. Soybean oil in your fryer and all
of it.
We've maxed it out, and they are still, so much more. And they're saying, we're not interested in buying your soy. We're going to grow soy in South America, and we're going to grow soy in Africa. And so right now, as of today, while we're filming this, not a single soybean contract has been engaged for this year from China. So
because of the tariffs?
Yes. China's just saying, no, I'm not going to buy your soy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if people even know this. Farmers that have commodity crops, they pay their mortgage once a year. So now all these farmers grew soy, and they have it going to take it to the processing facilities, and the prices are dumping. So what is their option? They have to pay their whole years of mortgage right now. We are in a Farmageddon agrarian collapse, and we must shift it.
Has Trump done anything good to change that?
Well, he tweeted on Truth Social that he's going to give all the massive wins from the tariffs to farmers. But again, you see what we're doing? We're just putting more boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes. So already farmers are growing corn and soy because of how commodity crop insurance works, and how that they are scared to grow something else because you can't get insured and blah, 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 blah. I understand. 85% of farmers are working an off-farm job, including myself, to pay the bills. So what that tells you is 85% of farms are losing money. it's not sustainable. Like, why should we all work a whole nother job on top of the 40, 80, 60 hours a week that we're
providing our food? Like, that's insane. That is insane.
But that's what's going on. And I want to say to the people, every day people say, what could I do? What more could I do? How could I? You have to give up your convenience. And so back to what the question, we went way off the question.
No, this is perfect.
The convenience. It is inconvenient to drive to the farm. It's so much easier to just drive to natural grocers. And I'm not mad at natural grocers or any
They're actually one of the better ones, and that they do
better.
Try to source locally better than Whole Foods gets 365 organic from China.
For
primarily.
sure.
Like,
and
for sure.
Costco has the most amount of organic SKUs, but a lot of it's coming from China as well.
Yep.
But I want to say, and I'm not, people say, well, are you saying I shouldn't buy organic? I'm like, no, it's the best that we have right now. But what I'm saying is, our dear friend Eileen, the small farm diet, the medium-sized diet, the local farm diet. Like, how can you, if you're spending $2,000 a month on food, I don't know, $1,000 a month on food, whatever it is, how much of that can you allocate to small farms?
Mm-hmm.
How much of that can you say, you know what? I want to do that. And I have a friend, or not a friend, a customer. They live an hour and a half away. And every Saturday they drive out to the farm. It's a long drive with multiple kids. And they buy their milk, they buy their bread, they buy whatever produce we have, and they buy a meat box. Maybe every other week they buy a meat box, and they go out to eat. And I'm always so grateful. But one time I asked them, why do you do this? And he said, well, I actually asked my church if I could tithe to you because I feel like what you're doing is really in alignment with God. And my church did not go for me tithing for you. But the next best thing is I can say we won't go out to eat at other restaurants, and this will be our going out on Saturday. The kids can play on the playground. We'll have this nice meal. I can have a maple latte with no weird corn syrup or anything in it. And then I can take nutrient dense food home for my family all week. That level of commitment, we actually need that on large scale, and not if you're just in Central Texas and I want you to come support me, but I mean everywhere. And even if you're not local, a lot of us farmers live far, far, far away. So you can take my friend Steve Jarvis. He's selling his potatoes right now, $75. You can get a box of potatoes from you Venmo him. He's on Instagram, like, Venmo me, I'll send you a box of potatoes. Like, do that. Support him. He has to sell a certain amount of boxes of potatoes to pay his mortgage. And he's been every week putting it up like on a whiteboard. Like, this is how many I've sold. I need to sell 20,000 more boxes of potatoes. And I think that's ingenious of him. I think that's endearing of him. But not all of us want to be that vulnerable. But I'm willing to be, Steve's willing to be. We are white knuckling it. Mm-hmm. Farmers are struggling. I write for a publication every morning from 4 to 6 a.m. before I do my regular job. And then I have a restaurant on the farm. So I'm also running a restaurant between all of the farming part of it. It is so hard to make a living, but we, the people, the consumer, and someone got mad at me recently on a podcast for referring to people as consumers, but come on, let's be real about our society. He was like, the average consumer, like, we need you to reallocate, and we need to put pressure on at least local government to roll back the regulations. Yeah. We need it to be okay for farmers to feed people. That is like the most basic, and that doesn't cost any tax dollars. It doesn't take anything. It actually will save tax dollars if you don't have to have people coming out and investigating and signing their little papers and all of that. You'll save money. And the bureaucracy is killing the farmer, and the lack of commitment to real food from the public. So you might not be able to do anything about the bureaucracy, but you can shift your spending habits.
And when the culture shifts, the bureaucracy naturally shifts. You see that because the big corporations are the ones that influence the government and its policy. So if people start swaying one direction versus the other, the big corporations are going to be like, oh shit, we need to catch up with that trend. You already see that happening.
For sure. You think McDonald's wanted to do $200 million to transfer land into regenerative agriculture?
Hell no.
They don't care at all.
No.
That was
But
like,
it's dope that they did, because it's a sign of the cultural shift to that direction.
Yes.
That's what it is. It had nothing like, hell no, McDonald's doesn't want to do that. No chance.
Not.
No way. No way. Oh man, there's so many things that I want to pull on there. I think like the first one is, I want to comment on something and give praise to you. So just like you said, that statistic where upwards of 100,000 farms have shut down or been bought by big corporations over the last 8 to 10 years, essentially. That was the statistic, if I'm remembering correctly. And we're talking about farms across the board. So it's hard to be a farmer in general, period, these days.
Yes.
You go above and beyond in adopting truly regenerative, quote unquote, organic. And when I say quote unquote organic, it's because, as we've talked before on a previous episode,
certified.
Yeah, you're not certified USDA organic. I promise
and I've
you.
already been sued for, not sued, but like told that I can't use the hashtag organic on Instagram. Can you believe that they're monitoring that?
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, let's say better than organic, better than
organic.
USDA organic practices on your farm, and are doing all these things, like writing a book, like just wrote a book that's incredible. And I want to talk about Debunked by Nature a lot on this episode as well. But you're doing all these things, but you shouldn't be having to do all these things in order to make ends meet when you're actually putting you like sticking to your values and principles that people who listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, people who are in the wellness space supposedly value as well. And like, I'm not saying supposedly and calling people out and saying you don't actually believe what you claim to believe, but I want to bring awareness to something, if I may. So there was basically zero complaints about Confluence this last time. It was such an incredible event. You and I both know that. And if for those who don't know, Mollie's my co-producer for Confluence. We do Confluence on her property, Sovereignty Ranch. The few complaints that we got were about the food prices. And I know even just a fraction of what goes on in the background in order to get that food onto that plate with that level of quality.
And we lost money on the food.
That's what I'm about to say. You lost money on the food for Confluence, and people were complaining, not a ton, but there are people complaining about the food prices. And I just want you to talk for a little bit. Normal farmers are struggling, period. A lot of farms are closing down. You're using regenerative practices. You're not subsidized by the government to do monocrop agriculture. You don't get that. I want you to just explain to people a little bit that piece of it, because that is such a big deal. And it just goes to show what it takes to truly shift the culture these days.
And I don't even think this is specific to farming, but I want to say that right now the entrepreneur and the business owner is caught in this weird thing where there's all this pressure, like gas, diesel prices, all transportation, refrigeration, like everything has gone up exponentially, and people are struggling financially on the other side. So for example, I'll just use French fries for Confluence. For example, we looked at our buying from the year before, because we don't grow the potatoes. We get organic potatoes from somewhere else. And one box of potatoes the prior year for 50 pounds was $38 for one kind and $42 for the other kind. And this year it was $63 and $68. For the breakfast potatoes, we use a different potato than for the French fries. But so just to give you an example, it almost doubled in price. Can I make the French fries go from $9 to $18? No. We went from $9 to $11, but where does that come from? But French fries, it's not just that. We only use tallow. So now grass-fed tallow to fill the fryer is $500. And so we're looking at, just for the French fries, we're at this very expensive place. And then people are like, $11 for garlic fries. That's crazy. And I'm thinking, could you grow potatoes and then chop them up and then fry them in tallow for less than $11? 100% no, because I'm like trying to break even on it, but losing money on it. But it's everywhere. I see everybody talking about the price of beef right now and how it's crazy and it's doubled since COVID. I would argue that the price of beef is still not where it should be. The beef industry in this country is mired with problems, mainly the big four packers that control everything. And so if I go to auction and I sell some steers, there's something called the Texas and Southwest Cattlemen's Association. Well, we have a representative here in Texas who brought a 1-page bill that just had country of origin labeling in Texas. And that country of origin labeling must include country of birth, country of death, and country of packaging. Because right now, right now we're not bringing in animals because of the screwworm, and that's part of what's driving the price up. But the rules are that we can bring in other places where there is no screwworms from Australia or whatever, meat, and then bring in the whole carcasses on a refrigerated ship and then chop them up here. And that's going to say product of the USA at
It's not, though.
the grocery store.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not product of the USA. They're saying we added value here. And I understand why they've made those rules. So if you're making some kind of tea blend or something and you brought in some tea from China, but then you had mint from the United States and and it was mixed together here, it's a little different. You're taking an animal that was raised in another country, born in another country, slaughtered in another country, and chopping it up and putting it on a styrofoam thing and wrapping it in plastic and saying that we added value here in the United States, so therefore it's a product of the USA. And when you go to the grocery store and you buy that, you believe you're supporting a rancher. Well, guess who? So this 1-page bill, it was not complicated. It was not anything. It was just simple. And Wes Verdell is who brought the thing. He brought one for pork and one for beef. And the Texas Cattlemen's Association lobbyist didn't let it get out of committee.
Wow.
They lobbied against it. But when I go to auction and sell steers, some percentage of that is going into this pot for the Texas Cattlemen's Association because he's protecting me. They're protecting me. They're keeping me safe. Like, again, where we have these big conglomerates to keep us safe, it's not keeping us safe. It's keeping us under control. And we have the lowest cattle herds that we've ever had since 1940 something. Here, I have an idea here in Texas for people in Texas. I think that Texas should make a massive, because we have no BLM land here. So all the stuff that's happening with the BLM land in other states, Texas, rich people own all the land in Texas. There's not big swaths of state land. So right now, if you have an ag exemption or you have a wildlife exemption, it's the exact same tax refund on your land. It's exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Well, I say that we need to make it an incentive to these huge landowners to let us graze cattle. Regeneratively, we could make that part of the rules, but to do something positive, because feeding GMO corn in a feeder that you get some corn at the gas station is not the same as raising mass amounts of cattle to feed the masses. These are two different things. You and your buddies might kill a few deer, a few axes, like great. We're not feeding the masses with this wildlife exemption. So I believe that if you are grazing, and we could put stipulations on how you graze, but there'd have to be stocking numbers and movement requirements. This could be a big way to open up a whole bunch more land. The reality is, you can't, if Alec was like, I want to be a regenerative farmer, you could not just go buy land and pay the mortgage from the cows by grazing them. Mm-hmm. It does not pencil. Only people, even people that are inherited their land, are struggling just to pay the property taxes.
That's insane.
So I believe that this could be a way to open up, or there could be some other incentive, but what is the incentive? How do we get these rich landowners to let us graze cattle on their land?
I wonder if a lot of them would, if there was just awareness around it, you know?
It could be, but I think it's the liability. They don't want to let people onto their land. They don't want to. And so when you're just having one guy fill some feeders and then taking pictures of your birdhouses and your deer feeders, and you get the same benefit, why would you want to?
You're right.
And For sure, I know there's a lot of people in your community that are trying to do these different pathways to remove themselves from the system. But most farmers are in the system doing their best. And the other thing is, I think that we should not be taxing improvements on the land that are designed to sell direct to the public. They raised my taxes $11,000 in 1 year because the restaurant and farm store.
You should have to pay zero taxes growing food for the community. Like that's insane.
I think that the growing food for the community, losing money and working a second job, I'm paying enough.
It's absurd. It's absurd. Like it really, really is just nuts to think about. And I guess this is a good thing to discuss next because it's been brought up so many other times, bureaucracy. So I was sitting with Kylie on the couch this morning and she was showing me a video that a friend sent to her. And it was this guy just absolutely railing on capitalism, pointing to what we experience now. And the problem is that's presupposing that what we experience now is truly capitalism. Exactly. We don't practice capitalism. And that's the thing. It's so funny, like people that are quote unquote anti-capitalist because that just allows billionaires to get ultra rich. And don't get me wrong, it does allow billionaires to get ultra rich, but here's the context that is missing in that. When the big multinational corporations are able to influence specific government legislation in their favor to where they can have quote unquote scientists put out papers that favor certain toxic practices, toxic substances in whatever their product is, whatever their industry is, whatever they're doing, and wrap that under the guise of being safe and being better for you, they're naturally swaying government policy to favor them and to hurt the people who are doing good. And that's a very broad statement, right? But the point is, it is not truly capitalism when these big multinational corporations are able to extract from the people by using the government to make it seem like they have more legitimacy in their various products and services than those who aren't able to pay the government under the table or influence legislation and things like this. If it was truly a free market, take an extreme example, right? Truly free market, let's say zero, like complete zero government intervention in the market in products or anything like that, right? If Pfizer makes a product that sucks and there are truly independent studies done, let's say there's an independent organization that is also not looked at by the government, and there may be competing independent organizations that do checks on the various products that are out there, right? And those independent organizations that check the organizations making the products, they are under scrutiny because people are looking to see, like, are you actually checking these products to make sure? If not, I'm not going to trust what your organization says, again, because it's not regulated by the government. But Pfizer makes a shitty product. The people are naturally like, no, this product sucks. They stop buying it. Pfizer changes their practices to adopt practices that the people want, to make products that the people actually want. And would it be perfect? No, of course, there would still be corruption and things like this. Don't get me wrong. But what we have right now is not capitalism. It's not.
Capitalism is the closest thing to nature that we have in a business thing. It's the natural state of humans. Capitalism is actually our natural state. And if something supports the community supports it, it gets built up. If it doesn't support the community tears it down and it goes away. We don't practice capitalism. Every part of our life is infiltrated by crony capitalism and oligarchy of some kind. Like we talk about Russia. I mean, we have the way worse oligarchy probably than they do. I don't know enough to say, but it looks pretty bad from where I'm sitting.
I've heard Russia's pretty dope. Like I've heard from people who've been there over the last 10 years and they're like, dude, we've been sold some bullshit about Russia. Like Russia is really cool.
There's a book. Did you ever read the book Black Box Thinking? So it talks about how the airline industry, every time there's a crash, they analyze the information from the black box and they see how they can make it safer and better. And the medical industry, and by extension, probably the food industry and all, and agrochemical companies, but this guy's just speaking about hospitals or whatever, has a different thing. Every time something goes wrong, they literally just go, oh, it's a 1 in a million chance. It's a human error. It's bound to happen sometimes. And they make no changes. And my brothers had an experience like this where a small little surgery ended up into the doctor made a huge mistake and cut some part of like above his anus in his and he had to get multiple surgeries after, and it was like a 1 in a million thing, and da 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 da. And I 100% believe he was under a lot of pressure, and he was being literally dethroned from his place and kissed the ground. And I think that was an expression. The sickness in the first place was an expression.
Got it.
But so I'm not saying like that the doctor is the answer, but that he went to this doctor, the best in Beverly Hills and blah, 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 or Santa Monica. Yeah. And then it was like no responsibility, no accountability. Oh, I don't know why that happened. And so this book is all about how the medical industry never makes shifts based on the bad outcomes. In fact, they mostly ignore the bad outcomes.
Wow.
And the airline industry makes these shifts. But the medical industry has 2 747s crashing out of the sky every single day in medical accidents. And this is not even talking about over prescriptions and blah, blah, blah. Just medical accidents.
Just medical error.
Medical error.
Yeah.
People are dying 2 747s. I think it's a day or a week. It's like a huge number.
That's
He talks
insane.
about that. And then, but he says in that book that capitalism has a bad name, but capitalism is the closest thing to nature. If something is thriving and working, it grows crazy in nature. And if it's not, the bugs and everything takes it out, disease, and it goes away. But we are not practicing capitalism at all. And I think that that's a Marxist idea that keeps us divided. And my thing right now is like everything I listen to, everything I look at, I try to hear for how are they trying to divide us? Yeah. And because it doesn't even matter if it's true or if it's false. Yes, of course it matters for our own selves that we're not lying all the time. But I just notice in the truth community, in the not truth community, it's just all divide and conquer, divide. Like how often are we hearing people say like, I have this person in my life and they totally disagree with me, but we had this beautiful conversation and we actually agree on this. Like my high school boyfriend still wears a mask. I'm still friends with him. And like I sent him my book, he's super like pro all the stuff that I talk about in the book. And he read the book and he was like, well, it's going to upset people in my realm of the world, but I love you. And I get why, you think and feel these things. And it was insightful for me. Like, we don't talk like that where we like have people in our lives. We're always just like the libtards, the radical left, the radical right, the national, like, and then we've made all these words that are not even bad words. Like a nationalist is bad. The American flag is bad. John's father was fixing his car outside of his house and he got a pop-up canopy on sale because it was after 4th of July. He got a pop-up canopy. It had American flag. This guy got out of his car, wanted to fight him because he was fixing his car under an American in Houston.
What the hell?
And so it's crazy like how we're just so mentally divided. Yeah. And I think that there's really big problems. The CBDCs, our fertility is going down, digital IDs and all of that. Our fertility is going down the drain. Like we're completely, the average sperm count of a man, we all know, is going to be like 0 by 2040. And so we can scream about abortion all day long. We can scream about microaggressions, but why don't we scream about, I want my kids to be able to have kids. Like that's the reproductive rights that I think we need to be screaming about. Right. And can we all come together and say, we'll fight about this other stuff later, but we're currently being poisoned from the sky, from the air, from the water, from our food. Yep. And that's across the board. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're Chinese, you're illegal, or you're here with documentation. It does not matter. We're all being poisoned, and it's time to say enough is enough.
Yeah, amen. I want to get back to capitalism and ask you, ask you another follow-up about capitalism and like what true free market capitalism would look like for farmers like you. But I want to comment on what you just said. So Reese, my studio manager, her mom, about 2.5 weeks ago, I was on the phone with her just catching up. And she said, what is your algorithm showing you? Like, what's the rage cycle for you? And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, is yours showing you I don't know, what's happening in Gaza? Or is it showing you like radical Islam takeover? Or is it showing you the new COVID strain, quote unquote?
Mine is radical Islam. Mine is definitely Texas. Like radical Islam is taking over Texas. Is definitely what my doom scrolling is showing me.
It's interesting to like really consider that though, like to zoom out and consider like, oh, what is my algorithm feeding me? Because especially what we're talking about here, so many people are consumed by this and the convenience and just the whole digital space that they're staring at this. They go on their social media. Not only is it already effed up that they're scrolling and ha ha ha, next one, oh my God. And they have this deep emotional response. Maybe you see someone get killed. Next one, ha ha ha. Next one, like crying. Next one, that one's boring. That's already crazy as it is. But what's even crazier to consider is that these algorithms are shaping our perception in ways that I think we're really not understanding, to the degree that, let's say I'm constantly being fed fear about radical Islam takeover. And again, don't get me wrong, some things like that might be happening, like in Michigan and places near Chicago, Dearborn, Illinois, like it's some weird stuff. But the point is, our whole perception of the physical reality that is in front of us on a day-to-day basis is being shaped and shifted by these devices, to where we're getting stuff that reinforces our own bias, but also plays upon our fears, and also getting stuff where we're seeing the most extreme examples of the ideologies that are oppositional to our own, to where we erroneously conclude that anyone who thinks different than us on X, Y, and Z topic is the same as this individual that I'm viewing on this screen right now. And I won't say everyone, but most people are engaging with these devices in that way, not thinking about the ramifications, setting the device down, then entering the real world. And they're literally behaving in the real world as if what they just saw on this device represents what is in front of them. So that's what leads to John's dad with an American flag pop-up canopy just fixing his freaking car, and a dude's pulling over trying to fight him because he has an American flag. Like, the only way that could happen is because that dude who wanted to fight John's dad has been around other people who have been indoctrinated by these devices, or he himself was indoctrinated to that degree by these devices. It is like scary to consider it at that level, how much these are manipulating our perceptions of reality. It is wild to think about. Like Eric Coppolino, who's an investigative journalist, incredible independent investigative journalist out of New York. With respect to COVID, he said the reason COVID succeeded, and what he means by that is like COVID took off and captured the psyches of everyone around the world, and the fear sort of spread its branches everywhere, and all the governments unanimously were in lockstep with each other, and the people overwhelmingly went along with it, is because of the digital age. Because he said in his critique that he's given, or in his piece that he's given on this, HIV/AIDS was essentially the same thing attempted. But the reason it didn't catch on to the degree that COVID caught on is because HIV/AIDS, we were still analog people. Now we're digital people, and we're literally allowing this to shape our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, which I propose might be actually causal in nature themselves when it comes to water and how water permeates all facets of reality. We can set that aside. But at the least, you can recognize your beliefs, thoughts, and feelings shape your words and your actions and your inactions. And these are what's driving our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings. So it's
causing our subconscious, which is then creating more of our reality than our conscious. Because the truth is that we're unconscious, no matter how much we want to be conscious beings, we're unconscious more hours of the day. I was just thinking about this the other day at Costco. Well, you had posted that on Instagram, and then about and I've been getting fed a lot of the Muslim stuff. And then I was at Costco and I was like, halal bone-in goat. I'm like, do Texans eat bone-in goat? And my husband's like, oh, maybe because he was like, because there's a lot of Mexicans in San Antonio and we like to eat the bone-in. And I was like, it's halal. And I was having this whole thought. And then I started looking around Costco and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of Muslim guys that look like they have more than one wife. And I'm like, would I have even noticed that? Would I even be? And then I seen this black guy with a fake leg. And he was obviously a veteran, like a young, healthy, like had shorts on. And so you could see the prosthetic. And he was in front of me in line and he's like a military, probably lost his leg somewhere in the military. And I literally having this whole thought, and I thought we went over there to spread our views of the world, our democratic views, to indoctrinate our democratic views around the world. And there's now halal goat in the San Antonio Costco, and there's 25% Muslim families, and there's all these lentils and different kinds of rotis and things that are not like normal American food. And I'm all for all different kinds of food, and I love lentils. But I'm thinking to myself, like, did we actually go over there and spread our views? No, because now the Taliban is literally the government over in Afghanistan. But we actually imported a lot of those ideas that we were opposed to. And I'm having this whole thought and I'm trying to explain it to my husband, and my husband's English is más o menos. And he was like, I think that you just watch different stuff on the internet than me, because I'm not seeing any of these things that you're seeing right here. And I was like, that guy's leg is gone because he probably went over there to try to this, but instead look around, this is what, and he was like, yeah, I just like watch videos like of dogs and cats and cows and funny things, people messing up tractors.
That sounds like Elias. That honestly sounds like him.
And so I was like, right. And so my husband doesn't relate to what's happening here at all in the real world at all. He doesn't, because he's literally, you
mean he doesn't relate to what's on the device relative to the real world?
Because he's watching like guys messing up their tractors or their jet skis or like accident. Like it's all kind of accidents or animals doing weird things or a guy getting thrown by a bull or a horse or whatever. And so it's like a totally different algorithm. And I was going on this whole thing about this guy, and he went over there and he lost his leg, and it's such a shame, and he's at least alive. And we just did the reverse. We imported the values here. And he said, yeah, Instagram's telling you too much stuff, basically.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's not to say that there isn't some weird shit happening, because on that note, I don't want to get off on a tangent on this, but on that note, what you were reflecting on, I've often reflected on a lot, right? Where neoconservatives advocate for sending young men and women to foreign countries to, quote unquote, defend freedom and defend democracy, and bomb places where innocent men, women, and children die in the masses, and then many more innocent men, women, and children are displaced. And then the left opens up the borders wide open to allow those same enraged refugees in to the United States. Those people understandably are enraged based on what happened where they live. They have completely different customs and values as us, but that doesn't mean they're bad people, but it's different. They move here, and then under the guise of safety and security, after the left opens the border up, the right comes in and says, oh, now we need digital IDs. Now we need more authoritarian structures. Now we need militarized police to defend us against what the left did. And it's the perfect left-right nonsense.
Two wings of the same bird, and it's all a lie. Like every single thing all of it was a lie. There was no weapons of mass destruction. Mm-hmm. We didn't go over there to spread democracy, and we certainly did import values that are not in alignment with American values. Right. And all of that is true, and it doesn't make us racist for observing it or anything. But the thing is, and this is, I do want to get to the capitalism thing about farming, but this is a big portion of my book, is I feel like we are asked to lie 1,000 times a day. We are asked to lie all day, every day. And being a liar,
either directly or by omission, because we're like too afraid to touch certain things.
But by omission or directly, we are asked to lie 1,000 times a day. And I'm tired of it. And that's where my book came from, Debunked by Nature. I'm tired of pretending. I mean, all the things we have to pretend, from that men can have babies, obviously not, but like that formula is just as good as breast milk. We are over and over, even if I'm just breastfeeding and I do a video on Instagram, people will be like, fed is best. Like, I didn't even say anything about it. So the other day I just literally said, no, fed is not best. Fed is second to best. We don't want children.
Is fed a formula?
Formula. Like just saying, because people say breast is best, and then people get mad and say, you're hurting women's feelings that can't breastfeed. Well, why don't we ask the real questions? Why can't we breastfeed? Why are women's bodies not functioning correctly? And do I have all the compassion in the world for women that got bilateral mastectomies because that's what their doctors told them to do for breast cancer? Yes. Do I have all the compassion in the world for people that thought they were in the wrong body and thought that mutilating their body would have them feel okay, only to find out that the only thing that can make them feel okay is self-love and connection to God, that you cannot fill a God-sized hole with plastic surgery of any kind? Like, I have all the compassion in the world for that. Have I made terrible mistakes? Have I slept with people I didn't want to sleep with and did things I didn't want to do, or gave people money because I wanted to be loved, or whatever, invested in things I shouldn't? Yes, I've made tons of mistakes because I wanted to be loved or seen or feel better. But we can't just keep lying so people don't get their feelings hurt. Formula is a necessary medical alternative to breast milk. And the idea that we can't even say that because it might hurt women's feelings is crazy. It's crazy to say men can't have babies because someone that doesn't feel comfortable in their body is having a baby. I'm sorry that they're not comfortable in their body, but that doesn't mean you can have a baby.
Right.
It's just obvious. And so the lies got to be too much. That's why I wrote this book, is I just felt like all these little lies add up, that people are feeding their kids terrible junk food and we say they're doing the best that they can. Like, literally they're not. We are addicted to convenience and we have given up our resilience. And I just feel like we have to stop coddling the masses, and that people's feelings getting hurt is somehow violence. It's not. Actually, we have to get our feelings hurt. My husband said to me the other day, I'm mad. You're on the phone too much. Your kids are talking to you and you're not hearing them because you're working on an article, you're working on something, you're doing emails, you're on Instagram. And he was right. Did it hurt my feelings? Yes. But is the result that I'm going to put my phone in the other room and be with my children? Yes. We have to be hurt to change. We have to hear the truth and have it stab us in the heart. If we're all not telling the truth because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, there will be no growth, and we just get weaker and more pathetic. And so that's the thing. I don't want to lie anymore about anything.
Boom.
Boom. I don't want to lie.
I feel like you were spitting from old Mollie when you were doing what was
poetry.
It? Yeah, poetry. That's what that was.
To answer your question though about if we lived in a true capitalist society, what would that look like for farmers? Well, it would be amazing, because right now you have a perceived value at the grocery store with all this food that has everything from like hair. Have you seen these things where they have an additive that's in hair that comes in bread that makes it not go bad and not squishy? That's actually comes from human hair.
No shit.
Gross, right?
Yeah.
But there's all different stuff, additives, mostly corn and soy. So we've propped up corn and soy. Only 10% of the corn that we're growing, that the government is paying for and subsidizing, is going into human food.
Wow.
The rest is going into animal feed and ethanol. I don't actually think the government needs to be growing corn for ethanol, paying to grow corn for ethanol. I actually don't think ethanol is like a really efficient way for us to fuel our cars. And then you look and you're like, oh, I'm 20% ethanol at the pump. And I'm like, oh, great. So is this the best fuel for my car? Or I'm just now putting corn in my gas tank as well as in my mouth because we just have so much of it. We just need to shove it in every orifice in your body, in your car. Just shove corn in all orifices. It's like ridiculous. And so this idea that we're feeding the world, we don't need to feed the world. We need to feed our communities. And if every community fed their communities, and so the value, how much it costs for the vinegar at my farm would not seem exorbitantly expensive if it was propped up against other vinegar that had to pay the actual cost of the thing. It
wasn't subsidized by the government.
It wasn't subsidized by the government. And we all want to make the most high quality food the most efficiently, but we've just lost the high quality part because we're being forced to get so efficient. And this is not necessarily the farmer's fault. Literally, if we're losing all these farms and all this farmland is getting developed into mass planned communities, I mean, how do we always just think we're going to be able to get more efficient? We're just going to be able to pull more food out of less land? It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like how we did in COVID, where it's like we're an upside down world where nobody cares about the real epidemiology, like the real, and even if this crowd is like a no virus crowd, but even if you believed in viruses, the only way out was the way through.
Mm-hmm.
One day during COVID, my midwife showed up. There's all these people, volunteers on the farm. She looked rough. And I was like, you have a cold? She's like, no, I got the vid. And I was like, maybe you shouldn't come around all these people. And she was like, only way out is the way through. Everybody thinks anything else is ridiculous.
I love that.
And I love my midwife, Robin. Yeah. But so, the idea that we just lie and then people repeat these lies, that we need to feed the world. That's why we're subsidizing corn. We need to, formula's just as good as breast milk. Wear a mask because it's going to somehow save you. Stand 6 feet apart. Don't eat at the bar. You have to eat at the chairs, but not at the bar. Like, it just, none of it made any sense. And so I think that we just have to stop lying.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I was going to say about, during COVID, I went to Disneyland with my kids because they wanted to go. And there was thousands and thousands of people with their kids at Disneyland. And I thought to myself, if these people actually believed there's this deadly virus that's killing everybody, they would not take their most precious thing in the whole world to Disneyland to be in these tight, skinny, and everybody's like 6 feet in the line. And I'm like, we're about to get in a tiny little capsule and get juggled around. Like, what do you mean 6 feet?
It's so stupid.
So, but so the thing is that we were all lying collectively, and we knew it on some level because all those people that, and if you stayed home,
we weren't though. But like, no, I get what you mean.
No, I was not. But what I'm saying is, all those people that were wearing masks at Disneyland, on some level, didn't actually think it was a threat,
right? Or
they would not have taken, because if there's some bombs going off or there's like some real threat, you're going as far away as possible from your kids.
100%.
So if any person could kill your grandma,
you're like isolating inside your house.
Yes.
And like maybe at some level, I have more respect from the people who are like legitimately that scared and believed in it at that level than I do the people who are like just pretending and virtue signaling. Like
Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson were just talking about some far left commentator, and they were like, we actually, I don't remember what her name was, but they're like, we respect her more than other people because it's really legit for her. She's still wearing a mask. COVID is real for her. She's not lying. Like, that's really how she feels. And she goes, so at least she's an authentic human being.
Right. I'd rather have that, honestly.
Because it's authentic.
So I'd imagine, just real quick to comment on I've just been like pondering this a little bit, especially since this morning, knowing this conversation was coming. In a true free market, what would likely happen if there was no government bureaucracy involved in farming? And let's say, again, same sentiments, same ideas apply to there being independent organizations that are non-governmental organizations that validate whether that farm truly has organic practices. Those organizations get checked and rated themselves by the people. So if they're doing sketchy practices, they're going to collapse. But the point is,
but like, the problem is if land prices still keep inflating because we're printing money, if every single time any one of us uses a credit card or gets a loan or anything,
what happens?
The money gets diluted, then we still have a huge problem for farming.
For sure. So
I just want to say that the land,
that's a problem for everything.
That's
even
a problem
just
for everything.
For
but
everything.
The land prices is the huge problem. But I would say that if that happened, farms that are doing the right thing would get the top of the food chain.
But it would also cause the other ones that are being subsidized by the government now that, let's say, that was no longer there, their prices would have to even out to where yours would then match theirs, I would imagine, or maybe even still be a little bit more expensive, but it wouldn't matter because it would be very freaking clear that the quality supersedes those other ones that are monocrops still spraying glyphosate by a freaking million.
By a million. But I heard someone say the other day, because farmers were talking on this thing, and this person said, well, my combine harvester costs $500,000. And the person was like, yeah, but only 10% of the corn is really being fed to humans. Do we need to be growing corn at the scale that you need a $500,000 combine harvester? What if we just went back to $30,000 combine harvesters that are more like the size of a car, and you're only growing the corn that we need to eat?
Or like feeding for your area, like growing what the people in your area need. That's it, like locally.
We have massive amounts of great farmland growing ethanol to be 20% of my. It doesn't make sense. No. And I also think that the consumer needs to educate themselves and understand, because there's consumers out there now that are like, I only eat all grass-fed everything. And I don't, there's the grass-fed dairy thing is not real. What they're doing is they're growing corn without a stalk. I mean, without the corn part, and then they're making it into silage and they're fermenting it to get enough protein. So it is a grass, and because it doesn't have a thing, and so yes, it's grass-fed. But when people are like, why are you feeding grain to your dairy cows? Because you can't keep weight on a dairy cow. When a dairy cow is making, just like a mother, we turn our blood into breast milk. A cow is making 5 to 8 gallons a day. That's a massive output of calories. And so I think that we have to educate, and grass-fed, all cows are grass-fed until they're a certain age, and then they're either they're grain finished or they're not grain finished. And I think it's all context. I think people have to understand, where you're living, if you have no food through the winter time for your animals, it may be more efficient to feed some grain and some hay rather than all hay to get yourself through the winter. And I think that we can't just have these arbitrary, like, everybody needs to have grass-fed, grass-finished, blah, 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 blah. I think it's like we feed our chickens meat because I'm in Central Texas and there's so much meat, and that's the butchers are throwing away all these offals because we as Americans do not eat the whole animal. We are highly wasteful we only eat the fat and the muscle and the bones, some of us. But I mean, in my husband's cousin is here, and the first time we harvested a goat, she saved all the belly and all the guts, and she cleaned it all and did everything for menudo. And then the second one, she was like, oh, I'm gonna freeze it and do it later. And then the third one, and then my husband's like, you want the guts? And she's like, honestly, you guys are so, there's no necessity for it, because you guys, there's so much abundance of meat in this country that we've become very opulent. And we may not feel like opulent, but people are like, people come into the store all the time like, oh, I only eat tenderloin. I only eat ribeyes. I only eat. Okay, well, great. I can't help you because that's not what we have right now. So I have all the rest of the cow and this part of the cow and that part of the cow. And we can't live in a world where people are like, well, I don't eat pork, but I do eat bacon. Well, what do you think is going to happen to the rest of the pork? Like, people have to also eat sausage and ground pork and whatever else, pork chops and roast. But
like truly eating nose to tail. Like people don't do that.
We need to eat nose to tail. And in my house, my husband eats the tongue. He eats tacos de cabeza. But we don't always serve all the guts. And so all those guts we feed to the chickens. And then I go to the butcher, I get all those guts and feed it to the chickens. And then people are like, well, I want no corn and no soy. Well, there's no corn or no soy. We feed meat. And then they're like, I don't want, they're eating, what happens? And doesn't maggots get in the meat? I'm like, yeah, the chickens eat the maggots.
Chickens eat maggots anyway.
But we have to get more related. That thing I was talking about earlier is the illusion of sterility, like how everything is so sterile. And honestly, the fact that everything is so sterile is part of the problem in our health crisis right now, is that we're growing food in sterile environments. We're overwashing the food. Dr. Ben Edwards is talking about, can you get some not overly washed food? So not just the benefit of going to the farm to buy the produce is that it's local and it's fresh and it's nutrient dense, but that the microbiology that exists in the soil, which is a lot of overlap with your own microbiology, has not been bleached off of it. And the nature of food is to not last. I'm just like, food is not meant to last for 6 months, except for pumpkins and butternut squash. And there's certain foods
or if you're canning or something like that, but like food in and of itself is not meant to be like that.
And we didn't have refrigerators 100 years ago. So think about how different our diet, like just when people say, well, what percentage should be fermented? Well, I don't know, but I think for all of time we were just mostly eating fermented
Right.
foods and then dried meat, which is also fermented to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these things. We have become so into fresh foods, and I think that that's great. And humans, as we developed, always wanted to go to a fresh fruit tree or get fresh food. But the reality is, the way that we preserve foods in the past was salt, drying, and fermenting. And at this point, we don't eat that way at all.
No.
And the nutrient density of the organs was required for us to survive. And now we just kind of we throw away so much. And I'm present to it because we feed it to our chickens, how much heads, feet, and offals, livers, gut, and hearts, and everything is just being thrown away.
Yeah. And, I think it's a perfect representation of how disconnected human beings are from their farmers, from their food system, and from nature itself, to the degree that, like, I've seen multiple times people will pick up, I don't know, a vegetable at natural grocers, and it looks a little bit different than the other ones. They're like, ew, I don't want that one. And it's like, that is so unrealistic.
It's
like
so
knowing
weird.
what I know, right? And I want to comment on one other thing, and then I want to get to your book, because you talk about that in Debunked by Nature, like how we've perceived ourselves as disconnected from nature. But what I want to talk about first is, for me, like, the whole grass-fed, grass-finished thing, yeah, there's some like validity to that. But
Sure.
But with that being said, and I want to be very clear on this, and Mollie's not paying me to say this at all, there is absolutely nothing like eating seasonally from the land that you are standing on. Nothing like that. So I'll give a little anecdote, but I've had multiple people say this that have come to Confluence. One of my friends, Danny Hamilton, I don't remember if it was dairy or grains, but she was highly allergic to one of those two.
I think it was dairy.
Okay, she brought this up to you?
You told me
Yeah,
after
okay.
Confluence.
I think it was dairy. And then she just had this thought as she's sitting on the land at Confluence, watching all the cows do what cows do, really connecting with the understanding that, oh, I'm drinking milk when I'm back at other places. Maybe it's raw and maybe it's like local, but still, this is different. I'm drinking milk that was literally just taken from these cows like yesterday or if not hours ago. And I'm watching these cows. I'm sitting on this land. Maybe it's not as bad for me as I thought. And then she started drinking milk and nothing happened. No breakout, no issues. And I haven't talked to her about this since then, but I know at least 2 months after Confluence, she's like, yeah, I'm still doing that and I have no issues. But the point that I'm getting at is, for me, similar situation, even if it's organic bread, organic grains, typically doesn't do well in my body. When I'm on your property, I can order whatever the hell I want on the menu with no possible consideration of like, oh, I might be like have issues with this type of thing. None of that. I just order whatever I want and I feel incredible. So there's something to be said about how human beings nowadays, in extreme examples, someone living in Chicago ordering coconuts during wintertime, drinking coconuts, thinking that that's the healthiest option. That's so not natural for the context and the terrain that you are on right now. And so many humans have become so disconnected from that way of eating and living. Even to myself, I'll call myself out to some degree. Like, we buy some from local farms, but we also supplement with natural grocers. Natural grocers tends to do a little bit better, but it's not buying directly from the land that I'm on. I'm not eating directly from the land that I'm on.
And I don't think anybody can eat 100. For sure we can. We did for thousands of years. I think that in this world, we don't eat 100% from our land, but we eat all of our protein from our land. We bake all of our bread from scratch, and we get Oatman's Flats, regenerative flour that's grown in the Southwest here. And I do think that there's something to be said, and then all of our eggs, and then all of our dairy, and then a lot of our vegetables when we can, and then when we can't, we buy vegetables organic. But there's something about that causes coherency in the body. And I did a kids tour yesterday, and I was giving the kids leaves of stevia to taste. It's like sweet and tastes like stevia. And the mom was like, "You're not going to wash it?" And I was like, "No."
What?
And the mom was so upset that I gave the kid that leaf. But I believe strongly that we should be eating off the vine, off of, and not washing our food. Now, people are going to say, blah, blah, blah. Of course, sanitation has made us healthier far more than.
Yeah, we're talking not like drinking the water that you're also shitting in. That's like
Yes.
completely different than eating an organic plant.
But no, but I mean, we do know sanitation has, people love to give the vaccines credit for what sanitation really did.
Totally. But when we're talking about sanitation, we're not talking about eating an organic plant.
No, and I think that if you think about even my grandparents, I would sit in the garden and we'd pick peas, and then my grandma would rinse them with the hose, and then we would shill the peas and make some food with them. We would dig up potatoes and we would keep them in our root cellar in sawdust, and we wouldn't wash them, and then we just rinse them before cooking them whenever it was time. So I think there is something about that, and we've lost it, and that, you and I believe water has memory and water has all this information. Well, I would argue that the water in our food has information for the water in our body. Yeah. And that there's a communication there. Now, does that mean we're only going to eat 100% from our land? No. And even for thousands of years, grains moved around, but the whole grain moved around and then was ground at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then cooked with water from a local place, right?
Yep.
So if you think about it, but the idea that we could just eat broccoli from Australia all year long, and I do it. My kids eat limited vegetables, broccoli, carrots, and certain things, that I buy organic broccoli to try to get some greens into my children. But that broccoli is not causing coherency in my children. And so part of me is like a little bit surrendered on it, where I tell my kids, you can eat what we're making, or you can just have raw milk. Since I did raw milk for 46 days and I was totally healthy, I feel like there's coherency in that milk. It was created here on the ground, and it's plenty of calories. They're not going to starve to death. Go drink that raw milk or have some raw yogurt. And I'm literally, that's my thing. Like, you don't want to eat, you don't have to. Just go drink some raw milk. Because I don't want to battle over food. Like, life is too short for me to spend my life battling about food every day.
Yeah.
But I do think that matters, and we've forgotten that.
Yeah.
And the small farm diet will shift the world. And Erin Martin is doing this amazing, she just got it passed in Oklahoma, food is medicine, where you can use your insurance. So people that have metabolic conditions, and they're reversing diabetes, they're reversing heart disease, and the insurance companies are actually loving it, because imagine that you could not have to end up with giving someone insulin every day, because you're just buying local food from a farm.
With their insurance, they can buy local food.
So basically, with the Food is Medicine Act, is with their insurance money, they get a card that's allocated, or they get a box delivered from a local farm. And
That's so
they're
dope.
eating local food and just eating local vegetables and local meat. They haven't gotten dairy into it yet. They're reversing diabetes.
It makes so much sense.
Heart disease. And so now there's like 20 states that have some version of it coming, because the insurance companies, it's actually a win for the insurance companies.
That's cool. That's so dope.
It's cheaper for them to buy healthy food than to buy insulin for the rest of their life.
Wow. It just makes sense when you think about like the food that is growing on the land that is generally near you is receiving the same electromagnetic information, the same water inputs for the most part that you're receiving, the same weather patterns that you are also likely receiving. So that food is naturally just going to be better for your body.
Informing your body how to behave.
Exactly.
Because everything is information. There's information in every single one of our cells, but there's also information in everything that we put in our mouth. And what is the information in a Twinkie? Like, I don't know, but I believe that information has been been disrupted in such a way that we can't see it or hear it anymore, so that it's just empty calories that isn't telling your body anything. And I think that our body is going, okay, these are calories. They're not nourishment, but I'm going to just store it for later, because that's what our
brilliant bodies do.
Our brilliant body is saying, wow, that was a big bunch of calories.
Like, what the fuck was that? Like, really, they're saying, what the fuck was that? Okay, just shove that for later. We'll use it if we need to.
Need to use that later. But it's no information. So,
and that's what leads to obesity. It's like your body's getting more of like, all right, more of that shit. Like, I don't know what to do with that yet. Just shove it up.
It doesn't, it's not telling your body how to make it into anything, but store it for later for fat, for fuel if we need it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any of the micronutrients. It has no microbiology attached to it. It's just dead.
That's so funny to think about it like that, though. It's like your body's like, what the fuck? That's so funny. If you listen to this podcast, chances are you're focusing on your health and recovery a lot more than the normal human being, and that's a good thing. You might be exploring things like circadian biology, red light therapy, saunas, cold plunges, and some other things like this. But there's one thing that a lot of people overlook: the non-native EMFs in our environment. Things like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and our cell phone signals. And it's easy to overlook this thing because we don't see it, but our bodies definitely feel it. There's no substitute for getting in nature. That's going to be the best way to regulate and come back to homeostasis. But when you're spending time in modern environments, inside our houses, inside our schools, inside our office spaces, it just makes sense to harmonize that environment as best you possibly can. That's why I've got Aries Tech set up both in my house and in my podcast studio. They help to harmonize and neutralize the chaotic non-native EMFs in our environment rather than fighting them. Aries Tech doesn't block non-native EMFs, and that's an important point to make. If something were truly blocking non-native EMFs, you wouldn't even receive a signal. A lot of so-called blocking technology that's out there can actually make interference worse, and we talk a lot about that in episode 186 of the Way Forward podcast, featuring CEO of Aries Tech, Josh Bruni. I was genuinely impressed with some of the studies that have been done on Aries Tech, especially the ones that have been done on professional athletes, and you can learn all about those on their website, or just head to the show notes. We'll have it linked there. This is all about being aware of the harmful effects of non-native EMFs, but not being fearful. But more importantly, doing something, helping to create a more clear, clean living and work environment. So if you'd like to try Aries Tech out, go to ariestech.com or just head to the show notes and be sure to enter code TWF25 at checkout, and that'll give you 25% off your order. Deep sleep, or in-REM sleep, is crucial for our body's daily rejuvenation, repair, and overall well-being. And unfortunately, most people fail to get enough of this essential phase of sleep. It's responsible for some pretty crucial functions, including daily rejuvenation and repair, regulating cravings, weight loss, hormone balance, boosting energy, and more. And if you're not getting enough deep sleep, you may struggle with some of the issues that I listed. There are several factors at play, including things like non-native EMF exposure, artificial light exposure, and circadian dysregulation. But another big reason for a lack of deep sleep is magnesium deficiency. Over 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium, and magnesium plays a crucial role in our sleep, one of which is increasing gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, which encourages relaxation on a cellular level. Magnesium also plays a key role in regulating your body's stress response, and when you're deficient, you tend to have higher stress levels, which, as you can imagine, doesn't exactly help with sleep. Now, before you go out and buy a magnesium supplement, it's important to understand that most products out there only have 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, when the reality is your body needs all 7 forms of this essential sleep mineral. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. Magnesium Breakthrough from BiOptimizers contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind, help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. The deep sleep benefits when you get all 7 forms of magnesium through Magnesium Breakthrough are really noticeable, and as I've shared before, I don't take a lot of supplements, nor do I promote a lot of supplements, but this is one supplement that my family is regularly using. And there's a reason that this is a best-selling product for BiOptimizers. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/Alec, or just head to the show notes and use promo code ALEC10 during checkout to save 10%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you will also make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. So, Debunked by Nature, can you just share the basic premise of the book, and then we'll get into specific sections.
Yeah, the basic premise is that nature doesn't lie. Nature is God's expression. And if you're someone out there that doesn't want to believe in God, then whatever source or creation or the divine intelligence that created everything. What's that comedian that says like, there's the nothing people and the God people? He goes, God is far-fetched, but nothing, that's impossible. The definition of nothing is nothing. So obviously nothing did not create everything.
Right.
But I believe in God.
That's an even crazier belief, is to believe nothing created everything. Like, that is insane.
And when you know that the Fibonacci spiral is in everything. So the source is expressing all the time in its divinity around us. And man's ego has drifted us so far from source that we've forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, there was all these weird things going on, as we've discussed at length a million times, that I started to want to know, like, what is the truth? And at the same time, in 2018, I had bought this farm, and I'm on land for the first time in a long time. I grew up on a farm, but I'm on land, and, you know, you're looking up, not looking down, and you're looking around and you're observing the perfection of the fireflies and the dragonflies and the chickens and the wild egrets, and like how everything is interconnected and just working in this beautiful perfection. And I'm a vegan, and I'm thinking I can have this vegan farm, which is an illusion that I had. And when that vegan thing broke, it was kind of the floodgates. So when I realized there was no vegan food.
You're like a militant vegan too, right?
I mean, I was not militant because I was raised vegan. So I didn't have this like rah, everybody that's, you know, when people first convert to like Catholicism or to Christianity, and then they just like can't.
Super gung-ho.
They're gung-ho or Landmark Forum, and they just like, everybody needs to do it. I wasn't like that because I was raised in it. So I didn't have that kind of level of like, but my entire life, 5 restaurants, I was a vegan chef. I was a media darling. Like NPR loved to do stories about how great and environmental I was. And my identity was I'm a vegan and I'm better than other people because I'm a vegan, just like to be honest. And I'm saving the planet. What if the planet doesn't need saving? What if God just needs us to remember our place on it, that we belong here? Like this idea, even the whole environmental movement that we need to save the planet is crazy ego, and it's an ego that needs to die. We belong here. And the whole purpose of the environmental movement, 100%, is to make you think you don't belong here, that you are a scourge, you are a plague, you are the problem. And if you have no sperm in the next 40 years, it's totally okay in the next 20 years because you're messing everything up. That is what we're teaching our children. And you see these things like kids are having anxiety about the environment. Well, yeah, they're having anxiety about the environment because we've forgotten to tell them we are the keystone species. We belong here, and that we have stepped out of nature. So of course there's an imbalance. And on the left, they want us to all go into 15-minute cities and leave nature alone. And on the right, they want to dominate it and pave it over. And neither one of them is the answer. The answer is to remember we belong and reconnect, get back to. And people are like, oh, we're all going to go live in caves. No. But yes, not in caves, but in comfortable homes closer to nature. We can have comforts, and we can still remember our place. And so as I'm on land and I'm looking up and I'm being grateful and I'm remembering that we belong here, and I'm realizing there's no food without death, not a single bite of it that exists, I think, well, what is truth? And so I start, and, you know, there's George Floyd, there's, you know, the trans ideology, there's all the COVID stuff. I mean, there was so many lies. The weight of the lies became oppressive. And you're not even allowed to think these things that I'm thinking. But I just start looking at nature, and I start taking notes to myself. Well, oh, that doesn't exist, and that does exist. And well, why do we think that? It's not true. And so as a truther, that's how me and you became friends, as we were both seeking truth during COVID. I started to realize I'm going to take everything that anybody is saying and bring it to nature, bring it to the farm, bring it to the savannah, bring it to the woods and say, does that exist? And do I think we're special? Yes. Do I think that we have a consciousness that other mammals don't have? Of course. But I also don't think that means that we're not mammals. I mean, everything in this book, I know it says like a vegan chef realized that nature is conservative. I don't mean like rah Trump Vance, for sure. That's not what I mean.
I know you. I know that's not what you mean. Hell no, that's not what you mean. Joel Salatin wouldn't have written the Ford for your book if that was what you meant.
No, but what I mean is that nature is always healing itself, always conserving itself. It's always trying to
conserving values too.
Conserving values and conserving God's perfection. We know water is self-healing. We know soil is self-healing. We know our bodies are self-healing. We know the perfection is there. And every single thing that we've live in this world is trying to convince us not. You can't have a baby. You got to get a C-section. You got to need an epidural. You need this. You can't make milk. You got to use formula. You can't, everything is to forget. Oh, the food is dirty. You got to sanitize it. Oh, this, oh, that. And they just want us to be so disconnected, telling 1,000 lies. And whether it's intentional or not intentional, it's got to be intentional for us to untangle it. And the other thing is, I love my family and they're very liberal. I love my friends and they're very liberal. And people started sending me text messages like, do you even care about humanity anymore during COVID? Because I wouldn't get vaccinated, because I wouldn't quarantine, because I was bringing my infant baby to work with me in the dangerous pandemic. And I thought, I think I need to start to have these conversations and start to tell people how I got to this place. Like, how did my values change? How did I start to think maybe it is the woman's role to submit to masculinity? Like, that's crazy. I was a feminist my whole life. Like, that's crazy. How did I believe that there was something more important than children? What was I doing? But like, I was crossing my arms in a chef's coat on a magazine cover. Like, what was I doing that was more important than having children? I was getting acknowledgement from people saying, you make the best vegan food. If vegan food tastes like this everywhere, I would eat vegan every day. Like, I was just getting ego gratification. But again, there's no ego gratification that can fill a God-size hole, and there's no ego gratification that can fill a child-size hole in your heart. And you cannot celebrate Christmas with your business. You cannot snuggle your business. You can't read a bedtime story. When I was leaving today, my 2-year-old said, Mommy, where are you going? I said, to do a podcast. And she said, give me a kiss. And I run over and give her a kiss. And she said, do I have makeup? And I said, a little bit. And she said, love you. I mean, that's the best part of my day right there. There's nothing else that's going to be better than that. And so I realized that everything I had been told or taught by going to college, by becoming an environmentalist, by being a devout environmentalist, that none of it was true. And all of it was based on this foundational lie that we don't belong here. And so I wanted to write a book that I hoped my friend Che, that my high school boyfriend that still wears a mask, could read and could feel and see how I got to where I am, that my aunts and uncles that are highly liberal could read it and say like, oh, I understand. I see where she's at. And I'm not trying to change the hearts and minds of everybody, but I want to change the way we look at the hearts and minds of people we don't agree with. And
love that.
So that it was started with the vegan thing. And then I've never been vaccinated. I was never going to get vaccinated. So that was like an obvious. And then
you're an anomaly. You should be dead.
I should.
You've never ever been vaccinated.
Never been vaccinated. Dr. Tom Cowan was my pediatrician.
I love that so much. That is so funny coming full circle on that. That is hilarious to me.
Very hilarious. And then I wanted to be able to just tell the truth. And I wasn't sure I could say everything that's in that book when I started to write it from a stage. I now have at different times, but it's still scary to say these things out loud. And so writing a book is a like intimate thing. You do it by yourself in a room. And then I remember a week before the book came out, all of a sudden I was like, I felt so naked. Like, oh my God, everybody with $20 in a Prime account can see inside my soul right now. But I hope by being that vulnerable and that authentic. And I know that people in this world think that like Tucker is total planned opposition, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Who knows? Exactly.
But I would say that he was a domino effect. I hated him. My kids are all Mexican. My husband was undocumented when he get here. I hated him. I was like, he's the worst. And he was the only person on like mainstream television during the pandemic that was validating my position on vaccines. And I had people that had known me since kindergarten asking if I still loved humanity. And this person who I thought was a bad, racist, evil man. And so I start asking my friends, like, you guys don't think it's interesting that Tucker's just like talking about the vaccines at 8:00 on Fox? Y'all don't think it's interesting he's talking about that JFK was killed by the CIA at 8:00 on Fox and saying like he has it on authority from somebody inside? And, I just started asking these questions. People are like, you get me, he's a racist. And I started to think, wait, I don't even think, what if racism is just being used, like veganism is being used to divide? What if he's not? What if I've believed he's a racist all this time because I just heard these clips out of context with no context that made me think that? And so I just started going down every rabbit hole with this idea.
With a different lens.
And I also, the other thing that was inspiring was his bravery. And there were so many people, you and so many people were out there being brave. But his bravery, and whether it's planned opposition, he wasn't brave at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying my perception at the time was his bravery of being willing. The monologue about MyPillow, where he just said, use MyPillow in place of Pfizer, and said, well, what if we get this much money a year as Fox from MyPillow? And he does this whole monologue, says, what if we said you can't go to school if you don't use a MyPillow, and you can't go to work if you don't use a MyPillow, you can't go to cruise, you can't go to wedding, you can't go to Christmas with your kids if you don't have a MyPillow. And he got fired 3 days later. But I remember just thinking, we cannot be afraid to tell the truth. And so this is where all those ideas formed. And then I didn't write the book until earlier this year, but I had all these ideas swirling in my head from those times. And so I attack everything from obviously COVID and farming and all of that. But I also look at masculinity and femininity and the feminist movement and body positivity and equity, diversity, inclusion. In race, I question whether race is actually real. We are the human race. We are God's children. We're all made in his image. And there's nothing anywhere that says that race is real. Like, we've made up a construct.
Yep.
Gender is real and race is not.
Right.
And so I assert all these things that they're not crazy. They're just like based in nature. And so I just started to do that. And that's where the concept debunked by nature. And I thought that I was a good person to tell this story because I am an environmentalist. I am a good steward of the earth. I was a great feminist and a great vegan and I dedicated my life devoutly to ideas that I believed made a difference. And when those ideas were shown to not be true, for me not to dedicate my life with the same vigor to say, I was spreading a lie for a long time. And it's important for me to say that wasn't true. And also, the idea of wisdom has to be that we hold our values and our ideas, but when something else makes more sense, we're willing to change our mind.
Amen.
And I and you all the time will say, at this moment, what I believe with the information I have, and I'm totally willing to change my mind because I don't have all the information. And that to me seems that just the willingness to say out loud, I don't know, and I'm willing to change my mind, maybe will give other people the permission
Amen.
to change their mind.
Amen. Amen. So well said. I want to dive into some of the topics from the book. The first one I want to start with, because you already mentioned it a little bit, we're sort of dancing around it, being a steward of nature rather than being someone who's domineering over nature or being someone who's a plague to nature. Can we talk about that a little bit and how you address that in the book?
Yeah, I think that we are the keystone species, like I said that. And so everybody loves to talk about rewilding, like rewilding. Well, you use my farm in California, for example. So it's an arid climate also, where we live in an arid climate here in Texas. And so if you look at across from the farm in California, it's just dead mountains and it's wild. But I grew 20% soil organic matter in a matter of 5 years in using these practices. So man and nature together can accelerate God's design and bring forth massive abundance. And so can nature do it by itself? For sure. God's design is perfect, but it takes much longer because we have critical thinking and we can see and we can observe and we can move things to come together to be better. And so I think that working with nature, and there's plenty of evidence if you look at people who used to say that that the Native Americans chased the bison, but now they seem to think that the bison actually chased the Native American birds. The Native Americans would burn the grasslands and the new fresh grass would come, and then the bison would come to the new fresh grass and then they could hunt them. So that, and then if you look at the Amazon, there's a lot of evidence that the Amazon rainforest, it's not just monkeys pooping out seeds and then it's this magic breath lungs for the planet, but that it was actually a co-creation of the indigenous people. And if you look, it makes sense because the Achuar people are still there living in nature. They're still eating from there, and their area is getting smaller and smaller, and we are invading upon it. But the Achuar people are still living very much in nature. And so I think it is very obvious that there's these ways that we can interact with nature and make it more abundant and more amazing for all of us. And we have gone the other direction. And it's not even a conversation of organic or not organic. The Great Dust Bowl was created with organic practices, right? We plowed and plowed and plowed. There's microbiology in the soil that is a whole communication, a whole host, one handful of soil has more living beings than there is humans on the planet.
Wow.
So I ask the vegans, like, what size of animal do you care about, right? What is the size in which you care about? But that microbiology is the foundation for all of life. And so if we grow that and steward that and take care of that, everything up chain is healthier. And if you want to go on a theologian thing, God picks up the soil. He makes Adam and he breathes his breath into him. Just after he spoke over water, put the waters above and the waters below and spoke into water. So water was already here and soil was already, and then he picks up the soil, he makes man, he speaks over water and has all of creation happen. So whether you want to believe in Veda Austin's research or the Bible, I would say that it's all there. And 73% of the microbiology, the DNA of the microbiology in salt water in the ocean is the same as your gut.
Wow.
Not the same species, but the same DNA.
Got it.
So
same nucleic acids, essentially.
And so what's interesting is we came of, like we were brought out of the earth, right? One way or another. But so that microbiology is foundational to all of health. And so we can either work with it or against it. And so when we're talking about glyphosate and atrazine and all of these chemicals that are killing the microbiology, and then also plowing and tillage is just as damaging. And some regenerative farmers think that tillage is more damaging than glyphosate.
No way, really?
That's a very common, like,
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because you're just disrupting mycorrhizal, everything that's in the soil it's a web. It's the soil food web has been coined. So when you till it, you cut up the whole soil food web.
Wow.
And so there's plenty of practices where you could grow one crop and then you bend it over and plant the next crop into it. There's different practices where you don't have to till at all. But if you would ask Gabe Brown has brought more farmers into regenerative agriculture in the last 10 years than all of organic since the 70s, he would tell you he doesn't spray Roundup, glyphosate, but he doesn't go certified organic because he reserves the right if he needs to at some point. But he definitely believes that tillage is worse than Roundup. And I don't know if he's just talking at the soil level and the human impact and but we do know that there was no glyphosate, atrazine, and paraquat when we created the Dust Bowl.
Right.
We just overtilled and overtilled and overtilled. And so I believe that bringing in the 6 principles of regenerative agriculture, which for your audience, if they don't know what they are, it's context. So context is decisive. You don't want to be a papaya farmer in Central Texas. And then the next is no tillage. So no till or low till, tilling less than normal. And then cover crops, keeping the ground covered. The mother is modest. She wants to be covered. We have all these bobbly heads talking about global warming. Well, if you will take bare ground and grass next to each other on a hot day, there could be a 40-degree differential.
That's one of my favorite videos from your YouTube channel is at your farm in California when you had the temperature gun and you showed your soil versus like the dirt road right next to it. And then you showed the difference also in the shade versus in the sun for both sets. And it was very clear the temperature difference of your soil versus the dirt right next to it.
Every single plant is a swamp cooler. People like to say air conditioner, but the technology. And so I just coined this the other day. I'm premiering it on this thing, but I want everybody to start using this expression. We always like to go everything high tech, but the truth is God's design is better. Like it's the most high tech, the most high tech. So if you have a garden, it's photosynthesizing, it's creating electricity, it's burning this, and there's no waste. If you have a solar panel, it's very inefficient compared to God's design. And so we want to go with the most high tech, not just our ego high tech. And so I want people to start remembering the most high tech. But I think that when we step into nature and we co-create with her, that is our place. That is our true design and our place. And so, no till, no chemicals, biodiversity, cover crops. What was the other one? And context. There's one more.
Context.
Oh, animal integration, the most important one. Herd, using your herd to move them across the ground, getting that herd impact, getting the microbiology from the animal. Like sterile systems don't work. This is the thing. We're growing all our food in sterile systems and then we're becoming sterile and it doesn't work. And so all of that, and we need to remember that agrochemicals are largely made to kill microbiology. They kill Roundup uses the shikimate pathway, or glyphosate uses the shikimate pathway, and that is, we don't have a shikimate pathway, but we're only 50% us, and we're 50% the microbiology that keeps the skin bag that houses our soul healthy, and that all has a shikimate pathway.
So the point is, like, it might not be directly harmful to us, quote unquote, but it's harming the microbiology that we're made up of tremendously, that has major roles in all the various processes of our body.
Yes.
Essentially. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Just a quick aside. I've wondered this before when it comes to the vegan, non-vegan argument. If everyone was growing their own food in their backyard,
nobody would be vegan.
Nobody would be vegan? Really?
Oh, in Hawaii.
Yeah, maybe in Hawaii.
Hawaii, close to the equator, you could grow your own food. But that's what was part of my journey in California. How many calories does it take to grow a tomato? More calories than the tomato is worth. Now, I'm not saying tomatoes aren't a good additive to a sandwich, a burger, or something else. It's great.
Right.
But the reason, my example of doing 46 days just raw milk, for Lent, I mean, that wasn't even all the milk that one of my cows was making. So the amount of calories that cow is eating, mostly grass, that I cannot eat, and turning it into something 3,000 calories a day that I was losing weight while drinking. I mean, that's crazy. There is no way, if we were all growing our own food, we have been programmed for the best nutrient density, and we're moved away from that because the abundance of food is so crazy. And people say, oh, well, why do you eat meat? Because you don't need to anymore. Well, yeah, okay, but we're all floating on this rock through space, if you believe that. But or it's a miracle and there's a firmament and it's amazing. Either way, it's like a special.
Yeah, it's a special place.
It's a
no
special.
Matter what
It's a special
right.
marble flying through space, or it's a special firmament, and it's a miracle. Either way, it's amazing. And so, what I believe is that we need to treat it like that, and we need to interact with it in that way, and we don't. We're just like, rah. And so, I think that if you had to grow your own food, you wouldn't have the calories to put in to grow only vegan food. And we are programmed to get, why do we think corn became the grass of choice to eat? Because it's huge and you can hand harvest these huge grain from it, and there's so many calories in one corn kernel. You could grow it, like it can grow with not using anything from the soil to like 4 to 6 inches tall, just from the amount of calories that are in that corn kernel. So even the vegetables that we've chosen over the years to feed us, it's because of the nutrient density or the caloric density. So, and there's a lot of evidence that there's these huge animals that used to exist that we,
like massive giant animals,
but we ate them because if you can kill a giant animal and then have dried meat for 10 months, you're
like a giant ground sloth or something like that.
Yeah, there's all these giant animals that supposedly we ate to extinction. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that said. But either way, we went for the highest nutrient density when you're hunting. If you were hunting and gathering your own food, would you gather mustard greens or would you gather a deer?
A deer, for sure.
Because there's so much more that the energy could be the same. And so milking a cow and letting a cow eat grass is way less energy inputs than, 3,000 calories of tomatoes. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's a lot of tomatoes. And one cow will make you 5 gallons that are 2,500 calories each gallon.
You know what's interesting though about like the calorie thing, the traditional view of weight loss, of fat loss, is to be at a caloric deficit. I'd imagine when you were just consuming raw milk the whole time.
Oh, I have a troll on the internet that I had a big fight with this one. There's this guy, I don't know why. He sold me advertising space in the LA Weekly. So I know him in real life. If I didn't, I'd think he was like, I don't know what. But everything I know, he hates me, right? But he was like, it's not the raw milk, it's a caloric deficit. You think I've ever eaten 2,500 calories a day? I'm not a big eater. I gain weight very easily. I'm not a big eater. And so
that's the point I'm getting at, is with the raw milk, I would imagine that's like very high caloric intake that you were engaging in for 46 days, but you were losing weight. You're probably not at a caloric deficit.
I was not on a caloric deficit.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense. But I think it's that my body had every need taken care of. So I think that part of why I gained weight easily is that I was bulimic and I was anorexic with bulimic tendencies in high school. And I think that I trained my body to not trust that there was food coming.
Got it.
And so I think that I don't know how to untrain that, but I think that my body stores any extra. And I think that in the raw milk, there was just massive amounts of calories and fat coming in, and the body was like, oh, I don't need to hold on to it. And I think I've been breastfeeding for 10 years and I'm not a great eater, like you're saying. So almost 11 years I've been breastfeeding. So I think my body's just like, I'm going to hold on to anything extra because who knows, she gets busy and she doesn't eat.
Yeah.
And so I do think, and I think that's part of what got reset in giving my body all those calories. I think that my body was like, oh, and I still drink raw yogurt and raw milk every day for a large percentage of my calories.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to try that so badly, but I want to do it from like, I don't know. I'm not going to say that the raw milk sources around here are bad. There's some really good farms around here. Actually, I should try that. I really want to, especially after seeing you do it. I just want to see how I feel. I like experimenting on myself like that.
And you feel really good and you're never hungry. It's the easiest cleanse that you'll ever do. The only thing is you get like bored. Your ego's like, I want to chew something. I want to taste something, right? But that's just your own mind. Like, but I started putting like cinnamon. I was like, oh, I'm going to put cinnamon in my milk. And
you put like chocolate in it
pepper,
or cacao or anything, or no?
I did coffee. And I think if you want to do cacao or anything that's not any sugar, not any added sugar, because there's so much, you're eating a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of sugar in milk.
Yeah.
And that's why I did ferment a fair amount of it in the Instapot and just not heat it at all and just ferment it. But because it's raw milk and you're not heating it up, the yogurt is all different. Like, so you have to be kind of willing to like, it's like, oh, it's a little chunky today. Oh, it's thick, it's thin. And Mike and Lindsay came out and they were like, and Mike was like, you're drinking this? And I was like, oh, I'm immune to it. I can drink, but I liked the fermented better because it felt less sugary to me. But yeah, I think that we could everybody that's been a C-section or was not breastfed, I think should do that fast for a significant amount of time to reset your bifidobacteria and reset all of your bacteria, because formula and C-sections start us off in such the wrong direction that we, I don't know, we never can get that back. And so, but that troll guy was like, it was a caloric deficit. But he also is like, thinks that vaccinations are good and formula is just as good as breast milk. And I told him I was going to pray for his children. And he said, I don't need your prayers. They are vaccinated. I said, great.
The next one that I want to talk about, I'm really excited to talk about, is diversity, equity, and inclusion as it pertains to nature.
Sure. Let's get me canceled right now.
That's why. I'm just kidding. No, I'm excited to talk about this because it's like what you describe in the book is, there is natural diversity in nature, of course, but there's not forced DEI.
Diversity, equity, inclusion is just a complete illusion. As I understand it in the world that I live in, that I don't belong to, but I live in, is that Biden had the most diverse cabinet in the history of the world. So he had a lot of people that were different colors, and he had a lot of people who had sex with the same sex or identified as a different sex or all these different, were confused, didn't know what, they were non-binary, whatever, these different things. And this was celebrated. But they all believed the exact same thing. And so then they all had the same function in the world and the same thought. So diversity in nature is having different functions and having different purposes. And there's everything in nature is diverse. There is no monocrop. There is no everything is the same. You can't have a forest without everything works together. The animals and the microbiology and the vines and the small bushes and the tall trees, and then the tall trees, the bushes give cover to the small trees, and then once the small trees outgrow the bushes, then they take over, and it's everything has a different function. And that's why when there's a bird or something, there's what is called the pioneer species. And here in Texas, people love to talk about how bad cedar is. First of all, it's not cedar, it's juniper ash. And then how it's cedar or juniper ash is not invasive. It is not meant to be here. We overgrazed all these areas and we've fenced everything, so there's no big herds of buffalo and everything like that. It's actually God's perfect design. It's a very acidic tree dropping acidic branches or needles onto the limestone. If you go under a cedar tree, you will see a thin, even if it's growing out of the crack of a white limestone, the most alkaline, not even soil you've ever seen. So now there's this tree that's growing out of a completely uninhabitable place, and it's dropping its needles and it's creating this bed of black soil on top of that white limestone, which will give rise to other species. So it is what's called a pioneer species that then gives rise to other species. Now, we are in a place where we've messed with the borders and the lines and the fences, and so it's not getting trampled down, and so it's closing canopy, and we do need to open that up. That's where we as the keystone species can come into it. But cedars are not the problem. Cedars are a solution. Cedars are acidifying the very alkaline soil here that needs to be regenerated. And so everything in a forested situation has a purpose, and they are all diverse purposes. It is not that the grape that's climbing on the cedar tree is doing the same thing that the cedar tree is doing. They're all doing something different, and the microbiology is doing something else different. And so diversity is great. Diversity is having different ideas and different opinions and having people disagree with each other. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is like a made up thing. And equity could mean your investment. Equity could mean how you can discharge debts. Like equity can mean a lot of different things, but it can't be forced. Like there is no, when you say equity versus equality, and we're going to make a same outcome for everybody, it's not possible. There is some cows that are born small and some cows that are born big. I can feed them all the same feed. I can even give the smaller cow extra feed. I cannot guarantee that the smaller cow is going to go to harvest at the same size as the bigger cow, because the bigger cow was just stronger by nature. Survival of the fittest. Our natural state is not to make it so that everybody ends up exactly the same. Our natural state is that we are all going to be different, and we're going to be stronger and weaker, and the weaker ones will not survive unless they find a way to use their intellect or other ways to become strong. And so this idea that we can force an outcome, that everybody that comes from the same starting line can come out the same. My husband is one of 8 children. Do you think all of them live on a 200-acre ranch in Texas, in the United States of America? They were all born in a shack in Mexico, and 4 block walls in Mexico. No, one of them is dead. Some of them have come here and made money and went back home and built houses. He chose to marry me. He chose to live this life. And is that life better or worse or more abundant or less abundant? I'm sure in some ways there's more abundance of money, but there's less abundance of time and quality time, maybe just hanging out time. But that might be more important to my husband. I don't know. But they didn't all end up in the same place. They all 8 boys or 7 boys and 1 girl, and they were all at varying degrees of successfulness. And they didn't all live the same amount of time. His brother was murdered 5 years ago. So this idea that we could force, like these are all people born at the exact same place, all had the exact same parents, the same upbringing. We can't force outcomes even in the same like family, let alone in all of society. So equality is the greatest thing that we can hope for, that everybody has equal chance. Everybody has freedom and free will to have the equal chance to create the best life that they can. Will who you know matter? Yes. Will the way you think about the world matter? Yes. Will your ability to not be confronted by a no matter? Yes. So many things will matter in each individual person's journey to success. But there is no way that the government can mandate that everybody ends up at the same place. And what will happen, or what is happening, is we are replacing, and I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, but what we're doing is we're just replacing one kind of racism with another kind of racism. And I'm going to tell you that I grew up in upstate New York, in Ithaca. It's a high percentage Black. I didn't think about race that much. I mostly dated Black men in my high school year. I only dated Black men until I was in my 30s. I'm in my late 20s. And so I didn't think a lot about race. But I'm going to tell you, somewhere halfway through COVID, I was interviewing a girl and I hired her and we're still really good friends. But in the interview, I said, I want to be really authentic right now. I never think about race. But right now, my views are kind of shifting towards more conservative values, and I don't believe in the vaccine and everything. And this is actually in my internal dialogue right now of like, how is that going to impact my communication with you? And she was like, I thank you. I really appreciate you bringing that up. and me and her are still really good friends years later. And I did hire her, but I had never one time prior to George Floyd thought about the race that somebody was when hiring them. It was only after all of a sudden, like, well, if I don't want to get vaccinated, somehow I'm racist. I felt like I had to communicate, I'm not going to be vaccinating. And if you think that that's racist, I don't want that to hurt your feelings. Like, that's crazy. We've connected all these things that shouldn't be connected.
Right.
And we use DEI, we use the term racism. And what happens is it actually dilutes real racism. And there is racism, there is ignorance, there is people that are so afraid in their own soul that they've othered people in that way. And that should be brought to the surface and transformed. But if we make everything, if people say I'm racist because I turned my restaurants from vegan to whatever, people say I'm racist because, I voted for Trump, or I'm racist because anything, because there's an American flag at the restaurant. What ends up happening is it makes that word not mean anything. And then it actually makes people more racist and more present to race and more fearful and othering. And like what you were talking about earlier, as we scroll, we start to say like, well, that's how Muslims are, and that's how blacks are, and that's how.
Totally.
And so I want to assert that race doesn't exist, that we are the human race. And I said it earlier, and that I use the example in my book. My friend Junior grew up in East Los Angeles, around inner city East Los Angeles people. And his parents came here as immigrants before he was born. My husband came here when he was 16, 17, crossed the border. And so my husband and Junior are both Mexican Americans. They both have similar skin tones, and they both come from indigenous people in Mexico, in what we call Mexico. So are they a race? Are they Mexican, or are they Mexican American? Like, is that a race? Well, I don't know. They both have heritage that is similar, but their ideas about the world are very different. My husband grew up in a indigenous village with indigenous/Catholic values, some merging of indigenous and Catholic values. And Junior grew up in East Los Angeles, which had the greater Los Angeles system values in his schooling. And there was, a lot of kind of cholo gang stuff going on. So that was influencing. He had parents that were newly immigrated. So there's probably some of that values that my husband had, and that's all mashed up. But you can't take like Junior and Elias, Mexican Americans, and they're going to vote a certain way. They're going to feel a certain way. They're going to want to eat a certain way. They're not.
It's absurd. Right.
It's absurd. And you could do the same. We do this with people all the time. And the very same people that will tell you that race exists, and then you give them an example of somebody that they look like but don't agree with, like my friend Chad Jackson, who's coming on the show, and they'll say, oh, well, not all skin folk are kinfolk. And I'm like, okay, so you just proved my point.
100%. There's
no race, because they have the same color skin as you, but they don't align with your values. What is a race? A race can't be, if you have to believe and agree and do a certain thing to be that race, then that's actually a culture. It's not a race.
Amen.
And we are all the human race.
Yep.
And there's many cultures inside it. And there's many ideologies and indoctrinations that people fall into. And maybe but if you take a Moorish American, an African from Africa that immigrated here, and a Black American that was born here, all three of those people are going to see the world different, the government different, what they want from the government, how they view their personal responsibility in it. And they may all have genetic ties to the same people. And so that genetics are real. Culture is real. People in different places feel and believe different things. But none of that should be confused with dividing up the human race into factions.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It is. And
it's totally absurd.
That's why my friend Blanchard always says, I'm not Black, I'm free. And he writes these shirts. He's like, because I want to believe what I want to believe. I'm an American, and I'm free to believe whatever I believe. And the thing is that we all need to be free to believe whatever we believe. And the amount of melanin in our skin has little to no impact on what we believe. It is mostly the people we surround ourselves, the family environment that we grew up in, and those that we value and listen to and take their view as true. And how we know it's not true is you can go into nature and you can see a herd of goats and you can see a white goat have a black baby and nobody asks how are the world going to relate to that baby.
Right.
Nope.
There's goats.
They're goats.
They're
They're all goats. They're in a herd. Their community, their tribe.
They're inclusive, really inclusive, right?
To their community and their tribe.
Exactly.
So there is groups. We are made to live in family groups, to live in tribe, to live in community, 100%. But I beg for us to find where it is natural for us to divide on the amount of melanin in our skin. The amount of melanin in our skin is definitively tied to what part of the world our ancestors developed in and how much sun there was.
Mm-hmm.
The more sun, the more melanin.
Mm-hmm. That simple.
That simple.
It's literally that simple. Yeah.
And there's no way to use the quantity of melanin in someone's skin to distinguish how they're going to vote, what they think politically, what they think about food, what they think about farming, what they think about community. They're not related.
No.
And
Amen.
we should stop pretending that they're related. And white women, I'm talking to you, stop it. Like, nobody needs you to save them.
That's so helpful to hear. Like, it disgusts me. I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'm not censoring myself. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it disgusts me when I see it's especially like white liberal women that didn't grow up around black people that are the ones that feel like black people need to be saved. Like, it is the funniest thing to me, especially as someone who grew up around black people to the point that I was the token white kid. Like,
me too.
It cracks me up to see that shit. It's like, it's gross. You're so self-righteous.
So self-righteous.
Yeah.
And I believe that they mean well. And I believe that almost everything is a desire for doing good and a desire for belonging. A man came to my farm during COVID and he came over to me and he said, I have no idea what made some people fall for this and some people not, but I just had a thought and I want to share it with you. And his thought was, people that are truly making a difference every day in their life didn't fall for it because they didn't need to fall into some like pretend making a difference, like wearing a mask and standing 6 feet apart and staying in my house and not going to see my mother is going to make a difference. But people, we all want to make a difference. So I think that white women with savior complex want to make a difference. But the idea that nobody needs saving. Mm-hmm. And the more, during COVID, I remember when people were talking about the voter ID laws, and I want to tear the whole government down. I want to go back to the Constitution, like just super
Amen.
Go back, rip it all back down. But the white women on the internet saying that voter ID laws were racist because black people didn't have IDs was the dumbest thing I ever heard. I was like, 30% of my community is black people. I don't have a single person in my life that doesn't have an ID. Like, what do you mean? To get on an airplane, to rent an apartment, to do anything, to open a bank account, to have a job. What are you saying?
You know what's more indicative of? It's like what they're really saying without saying it is that they believe black people are so incapable and so impoverished that they can't even figure out how to get an ID. That's what they're really saying without saying it. And that makes it even more fucked up.
And people do it all the time. They do it with food. They do it like, people that are impoverished don't care about healthy food. People that new immigrants don't. Look at Osmar. Osmar got here. Osmar is my foster son, or I took custody of him when he came here during the first Trump administration, and he came to volunteer on our farm, and he stayed forever. But he found me because he found Dr. Meyer Kyman because he got here. He started eating food in the United States of America and didn't feel good. He was sick. He gained a bunch of weight. He was lethargic. He was having headaches. And he Googled, can the food in the United States of America make you sick? He found Dr. Mark Hyman. So this is a teenager. So that came here unaccompanied. Like, what do you mean? And he's now given his whole life. Him and his wife are in New Mexico growing amazing goats and making products for the farmers market and doing all this awesome stuff. He's writing for Acres magazine. Like, he's doing awesome stuff, dedicated his whole life to food. This idea that we can say this kind of people don't care about this, that, or the other is a total lie. And it is racist in itself. Like,
Amen.
This idea. And I went through so many years to try to get qualified to take SNAP benefits because I do think there is food deserts. I think that's a real issue in our country and that there's places you can't get healthy food. And so that is an issue.
There's also systemic racism. Like there is, but I would say now it's more systemic classism that started out as systemic racism, but it's now become classism. Because you can get white dudes who grew up in the same area in the hood, and it just so happens to be that they live there, but they're under the same system, have the same issues as the black people living around them. So it's not racism. It started out that way, and it's now classism, ultimately.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that rural America that's largely white has many problems that are the same as inner cities have with the drugs, with the food deserts and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that you can't take, an Appalachian mother living in a trailer doesn't have any great advantages because she's white. But what I want to say is that there is structural things that are impacting, and that's what I was getting at, is that I went through 2.5 years to get qualified to take SNAP on our farm in California, and we had refrigerated trucks and we were delivering boxes all over Los Angeles, and I finally get qualified and they say, oh, well, the people have to come to the farm to pay you. You can't take payments over the phone. And so it was 2 years, so much paperwork, blah, 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 get it all finally done. And I'm like, what I don't understand, people can pay for Instacart online. Oh, well, to take credit cards online for SNAP, you have to do over some millions of dollars a year. And so there is structural barriers to getting healthy food to people that want healthy food. So I believe that there is people that are not getting healthy food that want healthy food 100%.
True.
And I think that those structural barriers need to be looked at. And as long as we're in this system of government, it's the government that needs to, because I can do all the paperwork and then they say you have to drive 45 minutes to the farm to get the veggie box, even though my refrigerated truck is driving right by their house. Doesn't make any sense. No. And so I think we do need to lift up structural barriers and ways that we don't allow human beings to thrive. But I don't think we as each other's human beings need to defend race as an idea that's real.
Amen. I want to talk about masculinity and femininity and masculine feminine dynamics and what nature tells us about that.
So I think that there is dynamics of masculine and femininity in nature. And I think that I want to say up front, there's diversity of sexual behavior in nature. 100%. People who want to say there's no sexual diversity of behavior in nature have not observed.
There's some gay lions for sure.
There's a lot of
there's some gay lions.
I mean, all female cows jump on each other to indicate to the bull that it's time for him to jump on this specific cow. Mm-hmm. But largely the male is there to protect and sometimes provide. It depends on what we're talking about. And the female is largely, his job is to raise children and to sometimes hunt in cases of lions and stuff. There is some of that. But if you were to take an emergency, and I use the example of a flood that happened in California in my book, the idea that we don't need men. When we had this flood happen, I was 8 months pregnant. I call my husband. I'm it's coming down like crazy. The water's pushing the the propane tank is hanging on by the gas line, and I need you to come home from work right now. He thought I was exaggerating, but I was pregnant, and he came home anyway. And he was so taken back by how bad it was when he got there. He actually locked his keys in his car accidentally because he was like, oh my God, she was not exaggerating. This is really bad. And my brother-in-law, Trevor, my brother, my husband, Osmar, all these people jumped in to action. And here I am out there with my big belly, trying to control stuff, and at a certain point when I'm watching sheet metal going across the farm, like in 18 inches of water that could literally cut my leg right open, and water higher than my knees so I could just get taken out, I thought to myself, I actually can't be out here anymore. I'm pregnant and I need to go inside. Now, did I want to stay and be in control? Yes, because by nature, I'm an alpha, like that. I'm 100% the feminist training in me. But what was more important was protecting my child. So I went in the house, I made beef stew, I made cornbread, I got out all my husband's sweatpants and whatever so that everybody that was going to have to sleep over would have dry clothes to get into. And I did the female things. Now, that is not my nature because I was, but as a mother in that moment, pregnant, taking care of my children that were inside and the child that was in my belly became the most important thing. And I had to go against my ego of wanting to be out there. And I also felt there was something in my mind where I thought that I could save the men from getting injured, but it's actually, that's not my place. Like, they're going to do very dangerous stuff in case of emergency where there's animals and there's children and there's wives and there's houses and everything's at risk. Everything is at risk. They are going to do dangerous things and they may or may not get hurt. But having me out there say, baby, that's not going to help. Right. And early in the day when I was still outside, my husband smashes into this mulberry tree and I'm like, babe, my mulberry tree. And he's like, cállate, cabrona, which is like, shut up, basically. And this girl that works for me goes, well, toxic masculinity much. And I remember thinking, like, does she want to be here with just me and her and Nicole, my other assistant? Like, no, like the last thing you want is to be just women and children when there's a real emergency. Totally. And so I think that our society has devalued men to such the point that it is hard. I'm going to be honest. It is hard for women to follow men in our culture because men are not trained to be leaders. Men have become emasculated so much. And then they do what they want to do maybe and not what's best for the whole, what's best for the family. And so I want to say on both sides, women, we do need to let men lead. And men, you have to become a leader because we are going to want to take care of our children at all costs. And so if we think that you're not leading our children to safety, we will take control. You'll have to step into your masculine. We'll have to step. And my life was already set up and designed that I was very much in my masculine. So this is a challenge in me and my husband's marriage, 100%. It's a challenge on a personal level. It's a challenge on a financial level. It's a challenge. But if people can learn from my lesson and have children at 22 instead of at 37, then you can build with a man together. And I don't think leaving your wife home for 10 hours a day with all the kids is right. I don't think it's going to cause very good mental health. Of course. I think that creating businesses where you can all be together is more the natural order of things. And so I do want to say that. But I do want to say to my feminist women out there, I was married once before this marriage, and I could have easily ended this marriage at points, and I would have been justified. I could have told whatever story I would have told, people would have been like, oh, that was a good choice. But the truth is, what's best for my children is an intact family unit. And that involved me surrendering and doing things that maybe aren't it's not my nature to wake up and go get him coffee and bring it to him right away in bed. It's not. I kind of trained myself in that. It's not my nature to go get him a plate. Like he can get his own plate. Why do I have to get him a plate? These are things that are important to him. And culturally, my husband is a very machismo Mexican man, but it doesn't take anything. I never say no to sex. I forget to get him plates sometimes. I forget to get him coffee sometimes, but I'm training myself in that. But it doesn't cost anything. I love you doesn't cost anything. Making love to your husband doesn't cost you anything. Getting him a plate, getting him a coffee, making him a sandwich, checking in if he's eating. These things cost us nothing and they can make all the difference. The other day, someone opened a door for somebody at my farm. And she was like, you think I can't open the door for myself? And I thought, like, what is wrong with us? Like, how have we been trained? Like, it's a show of respect. Just like my husband can get his own plate, me getting him his plate is a show of respect. And of course, we do live in a world where I can do most things that men can do as well. But when Luna was 5 days old, I got out of bed, still bleeding profusely, and strapped my baby onto me, and I went to work. And I didn't honor my body. I didn't honor my daughter. I didn't honor any of it because I was trying to prove that I can do anything he can do better. But the thing is, a man cannot birth a child, cannot grow a child out of our own body and push it out. And the fact that I felt that I needed to drag not just with Luna, I did it with Rio, and Rio was a very traumatic birth. I did it in 12 days, was New Year's Eve, and I had to be there for the New Year's Eve banquet that we were having. And there's pictures of me in the kitchen with a baby strapped to me, chefing it up. And it happened over and over again where I kept putting my job ahead of healing. And if anybody can learn, and nothing bad happened, I don't have like a uterus falling out. I had plenty of children, but it wasn't honoring of my child in the time for bonding, in the letting my body rest and recuperate. And I was older. I had children 37, 39, 41, 45. Like, I was older in my childbearing years, and it would have been totally okay to let my body rest.
Yeah.
And instead,
that's the feminine nature, is to do that.
But the masculine in me was in survival. And so, men, you have to create an environment where the woman doesn't feel like she's in survival. And if you want her to submit, that's necessary. And if it can't happen, like in my marriage, it can't fully happen. I can't stop working. That doesn't work. I am the face of and the driving force of the business that we do. But there does have to be some letting him lead. There does have to be surrendering, and especially around raising our children, because it's often my nature to want to protect them. But the thing is he's interacting with our sons, particularly, he's interacting with the man that they're going to become. And I am interacting with the child I pushed out of my body. And so he's speaking to the man they are becoming, and I am speaking to the child I birthed. And both of that balance hopefully creates a man that then can lead his family.
That's a really good way to look at it. I've never heard it like that. And that makes a lot of sense too.
And I actually have to be a little harder on our daughters because he's little princess. Like, just let them do what I'm like, Rio's like a little chubbier, so he's always controlling his sugar and controlling. Luna has like all these cavities and eczema, and I'm like, I don't understand. He's like, she's skinny. I'm like, I understand. Sugar's operating different in her body. He doesn't have a single cavity. He doesn't have any eczema. Yes, he's a little chubbier. I suspect it actually has to do with his birth. But that being said, he's like on him about it, right? But not on our daughters at all. I was like, oh, let's get ice cream. Let's do whatever you want. Like, just daddy's little princesses.
Sounds like me though with my daughter.
So I think that we have to be the balance of each other. So I will have to create the hard part for the girls, preparing them for childbirth, And the other thing about femininity is this idea that we say in our culture all the time is my body, my choice. And even the freedom movement, the anti-vax movement has taken it on. I actually think we shouldn't say it. And I've said this at talks, and I think that I have a talk on Way Forward from Confluence where I talk about this, but my body, my choice is the opposite of motherhood. And if we want good wives and good mothers, we should stop saying it. No matter what you think about abortion, stop saying it, because your body belongs to the commons of your family, and it's not my body, my choice. And even for men, my body, my choice. I wrote an article recently where I said, I want you to live for us, not die for us. So many men, you see them everywhere, and they are devoted husbands and devoted fathers, and they're working themselves to death. They're drinking too much. They're eating too much sugar, and their bodies are suffering. Their bodies are breaking down. And they would take a bullet for their family. But would they take a walk, go to the gym, change their eating habits, stop drinking soda, stop drinking beer? Like, we want our husbands to live for us, not die for us. And that my body, my choice chant has us forget. And so the man's body also belongs to the commons, but in a different way. You are the provider, you are the protector, but you can't be the protector with a huge gut and diabetes and walking with a cane. You cannot.
Amen.
So, on both sides, my body, my choice doesn't actually fall into the roles of masculinity and femininity and what's required to have a family work. And so I want us to stop saying it, because our body does belong to our families.
Yeah, it's just that the context is it doesn't belong to the government. And
no, it doesn't belong to the government.
It doesn't belong to the fucking government. Exactly.
No, for sure, it doesn't belong to the government. In no way was I saying that.
No. I'm just saying like it depends on the context you mean it in. Like, because if it's taken to its extreme, when you say my body, my choice, that quite literally leads to women adopting. And don't get me wrong, there's variations of ideology when it comes to what femininity actually is, what masculinity actually is. But the point that I'm getting at is when that's taken to its extreme, it comes to like toxic femininity that we see rampant amongst our culture, where women under the guise of like feminine empowerment are actually stepping into like full-blown masculinity. And then the same thing with men, like adopting that ideology. Now, like the whole trans thing, I'm not going to say that's a function of my body, my choice, but it's the same branch, if you will.
It might be.
It might be, right? Because it's like, oh, I can do whatever the fuck I want with my body, and then it emasculates men.
And we never talk about toxic femininity.
Yeah.
I've gotten videos taken down for breastfeeding. I've gotten, a lot of flack for breastfeeding. So when a baby is on your nipple, you can't see the nipple, right? So I've then intentionally put up videos where you could see the nipple just to push back. But my point is that we act like every day you can see women's breasts just to barely above the nipple on Instagram. Yeah. Every day men are being bombarded with sexually explicit images that lead to pornography.
Yep.
And that is the explicit role. And so it is completely okay to see a boob down to with just a tassel on the nipple, and it will not get taken off of social media or whatever. But a baby breastfeeding is disgusting. I'm doing it for the pedos. I violated the community guidelines, blah, 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 blah.
You get more negative comments associated with that, which is a normal biological function, than the women who flaunt themselves on social media in front of men.
Yes, and they'll be in a thong with some tassels and it's considered covered. But me breastfeeding my child is considered dirty, and why would you put that on the internet? Why would you post that? That's a private thing. It's like posting taking a dump. No, it's literally not. Like, why should my child eat in the bathroom? People all the time, do you want to take that to the bathroom? No, do you want to eat in the bathroom? I don't understand. And the idea that the reason we have breasts, like I've always had big boobs, and I was so grateful when I started breastfeeding, because I was like, oh, there's a purpose. Like I've been carrying
biological function.
I've been carrying these things around for 37 years, and now they're getting useful. But this idea, we need to normalize breastfeeding. The reason I post and I breastfeed in public and I don't cover myself is because it is the normal biological function of every Homo sapien female in the world, and up until very recently happened always, and there was no other option, right? There was no formula, there was no this idea that it's like dirty or it should be hidden or it's sexualized is a function of how sexualized our culture is.
100%.
There's nothing sexual about breastfeeding. It is the most natural thing in the whole world. And if you are experiencing a sexual experience or a feeling or a thought from it, then that's work for you to do inside of yourself to realign yourself with what's feminine, what's natural, and what's normal.
100%. And you see it like less in our spaces where people are like still wanting, women, not people, let me be clear, people can't breastfeed, but women are wanting to cover themselves up. But you still see that amongst society because of that conditioning that this is something that is sexual when its primary function is for nourishing a child. And luckily, like, I feel like that's going away, but it's just so interesting, even with Kylie, right? Because she's breastfeeding right now. She'll still go into some spaces, and depending on the context of where we're at, like, still feel the pressure to. She doesn't end up doing it, but she'll feel the pressure to cover up a little bit more relative to other places. And it's like, why is that? What is the reason for feeling like I need to cover up right now? Don't get me wrong, I love my wife's boobs, but it's like their function is to nourish a child.
Right. And I think as a society, if we want to have healthy children, we actually need to support breastfeeding on like every single level. I wrote an article recently where I said we can't have MAHA until we make C-sections abnormal and breastfeeding normal.
Amen.
And so we as a culture need to support women in breastfeeding. So I think there should be no stigma because we want to encourage women to breastfeed as long as possible. I mean, I'm not saying like big 10-year-old kids or whatever, but I'm saying 3 years old is the average around the world. And I only got one of my kids till 3 years old, but all of them past 2 years old. I've been breastfeeding nonstop for what will be 11 years in December. And so that's the greatest gift I can give my children. Like literally, and we know it has IQ, makes a difference with IQ, microbiology, immune system, allergies, skin conditions, cancer later in life, obesity later in life. So what in the world would we be doing to think that anything is more important than breastfeeding our children? And the real reason we only have 6 weeks of maternity leave in this country is exactly what you were talking about earlier in this interview, that the major companies like Nestle's and all these companies, they have lobbied to the tune of millions of dollars to keep maternity leave short in the United States. We have the shortest maternity.
Really? Those companies have?
Nestle.
I didn't freaking know that. Wow. That's
so
because is it because of formula?
Formula.
No shit.
So formula.
Wow.
So there's a huge formula lobby that lobbies for women to go back to work immediately. 6 weeks is all we give women paid maternity leave in this country. And of all the developed nations, we have the shortest maternity leave. 3 months is like the average. But so this idea, and then at the same time, we're lobbying to have like spaces for women to pump. Anybody that's pumped knows it's a pain in the butt. You will give up. I mean, no, there's women that I applaud, like a year of pumping at work, and I applaud them. But mostly you'll give up because you feel like a cow. You're just like shh, in some closet, in some bathroom, in some break room. And
it's also like there's a huge difference between having that connection with your, I mean, I can't fucking speak to this. I've never been a woman, would never identify as one. But what I observe is there's a bond of having a baby breastfeed versus like, what the fuck? I'm like being pumped, you know,
yes,
like
it's totally different. Thing. It's totally different. And it's not the same. Just to say, like, the baby saliva is communicating with the nipple. And there's all this science that shows that you actually then make the milk that is most necessary for the baby. Now, again, like I said earlier, have compassion for women can't, that there's medical emergencies, that there's reasons, 100%. Nobody's shaming anybody that has to feed formula. I might be low-key shaming people that choose to feed formula when they have no reason other than their convenience to do so. And this is, again, we trade our resilience for convenience in 1,000 ways. And this is a big one. And we have like a major, major, major problem with the microbiology. We're getting this industrialized microbiology that we used to have 300,000 species, and now sick people have like 2,500 and healthy people have 5,000. I think that's what Ben Edwards was saying at that Food is Medicine conference. And what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? We know that this makes a difference, and yet we are not supporting. Our mothers need to support their daughters. I have a friend, her grandmother told her, don't let your milk come in. When she had a young mother, and her grandmother wrapped her breast with saran wrap so that her milk never came in, so that she wouldn't have any engorgement. And they wrapped her breast with saran wrap and just started formula feeding the baby. And it's so crazy to me that we have to change that. The elders need to course correct. And the problem is that if you think I did it and you came out fine, and then you did it, but it's cumulative too. So 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. And of course we can point to vaccines, we can point to processed foods, but we also need to point to just not birthing and breastfeeding as a foundation that's impacting our health in untold ways.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's so interesting on that same note. My grandma made the comment, I don't think she meant it rude, it's just a product of her conditioning, like that it's weird. She didn't say it was weird, but she was concerned that Kylie was still breastfeeding our son when he was 2. She was like, "You're still breastfeeding him?" And she made the comment like, "I didn't breastfeed either of my kids." And it's just like, that is so abnormal. Like that is not normal.
Abnormal. And
that is not normal.
And there was like last year, I can't remember who was like an Instagram model. I wasn't familiar with her until it started going crazy around, but people were upset because her 2.5 or 3-year-old was still breastfeeding and people were giving her a fit about it. And I made a whole thing about moms should not be shaming other moms out of breastfeeding. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But again, what I talk about in my book is there's all these normal, natural things that we've moved away from. Even co-sleeping. Co-sleeping is totally, all mammals sleep with their children, their offspring. Where did we get an idea that we should let them cry it out in another room?
Insane.
2 men wrote these books in Europe wanting to get women to go into the factories and have more stabilized sleep patterns so they could go into the workforce.
That's literally, wow.
There's the 2 main sleep training books came out at the same time that they were trying to get people to work in factories. And so, you know, if you're waking and sleeping with your baby, you can't go to an 8-hour job. But if you let your baby cry it out till the point where it doesn't even think it matters anymore because nobody's coming, but then you raise a human being who thinks their voice doesn't matter.
That, but also is incredibly anxious, has attachment issues. Like there's so many things with that. Yeah.
And yeah, I co-slept with all my children. I didn't even think I was going to be a crazy co-sleeping mom, but it just did not seem natural. It was literally like my mother instinct, like, oh, it doesn't seem natural to put him. I think I even bought one of those bassinets with the first one, and I was like, it seems weird.
Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rushed diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember. Hey y'all, I'm here with Melissa Kupsch from Remedy Academy of Homeopathy. We are so stoked here at The Way Forward to be partnering with Melissa and Remedy in order to spread the message of homeopathy across the world, and also to partner on the eventual development of healing centers across the United States.
People are pretty quickly coming to realize that frequency is the future of medicine. We are witnessing the great resurgence of homeopathy right now. We're really moving away from that suppressive medical model. Whether it's for eczema, asthma, hormones, fertility, anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever it is, it all starts as energy in the person's field first. If we change our field, we can completely change our life. Our 2-year academy is open worldwide to anyone who wants to become a homeopath. We've got 5 lecturers and we currently have over 500 students enrolled, which is record numbers in our field. A career in homeopathy is amazing for anyone who wants flexibility in their work and who wants to be valuable in creating this new world. We have stay-at-home parents enrolled, we have ex-medical professionals, grandparents signed up who want to learn how to heal their grandchildren and pass on that invaluable knowledge. We even have husband and wife teams. So my husband enrolled in the course with no prior knowledge of health as a background, and he is loving it.
Kylie is also enrolled as well, so my partner is, and she's so stoked to become a homeopath and to be helping to spread this message across the world.
The thing that we hear from so many of our students is, I found my thing. Homeopathy is the key. We harness frequencies from nature and we alter the field of all creations. So if anybody wants to join us or they want to know more about it, they can visit our website.
Yeah, and all that information will be in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Remedy Academy, also Remedy Collective, also some of the homeopathic products that they have, please just head to the show notes. All of that will be listed there.
All right. I want to talk about discomfort a little bit more. And I want to hear it from you, from your position as a farmer, how much you're choosing discomfort and like what you have learned about your life where maybe you chose convenience before that and what you see in nature as it pertains to choosing discomfort. And then I want to go into next, just as a minor thing, like the body positivity movement.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think those two kind of go hand in hand, right? Like there's a lot of things that lead to people becoming obese. It's like our body doesn't know what the fuck to do with it, just like we said earlier. So it's like, just throw that in there and we'll figure it out later. But I think it's like a product of choosing comfort, choosing to do the easier wrong over the harder right thing consistently over and over again. So let's start with that.
Yeah, I have always lived my life, even though when I was having a vegan restaurant, I've always lived my life that I felt like I was doing what I thought God wanted me to do. Like I've always very much lived in the being led versus doing the more easy and comfortable thing. I think as a culture, as a whole, we have abandoned doing hard stuff. And to be a human in the world up until very recently was very, very hard. In order for you to have existed, thousands of people had to have babies, had to survive to adulthood, had to hunt, war, fight off, grow food, go through famines, all different stuff in order for you to exist right now.
Which means you are a freaking miracle.
You are a miracle.
Every single one of you.
Every single one of you is a miracle. Yeah. Now, we kind of take that for granted. And sometime around when I was in college, I remember there started to be these like emails that would go around like, oh, we're going to watch a movie in class today, but there's going to be a rape scene. So if that's triggering, you don't have to come to class and you could do this makeup thing. And oh, we're going to have a conversation about race if that's going to make you uncomfortable. So we started to do this thing where if people are uncomfortable, it means something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that discomfort is information. It's information coming at you. If you're cold, you maybe need to put your sweater on. If you're shoveling and you get blisters on your hands, you need to shovel more so that you don't have blisters next time. But only through doing the hard thing, like shoveling, do you get the calluses on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates resilience. The pushing through hard things is what human beings have done forever. And so this idea that we can make life comfortable enough that there is, and that discomfort is like violence, or discomfort is an attack, or something is wrong, is prevalent everywhere in our society. And in the book, I talk about a server who messed up with a table, and that she just messed up with the table. And then, but when she came to me, she said, I feel uncomfortable. I said, oh, are they hitting on you? What are they doing? I'm so sorry. And she said, oh, I didn't get their soup out, and I messed up their drinks, and I got the wrong appetizer. And I was like, oh, go fall on the sword, apologize, say it's not the kind of service we're committed to. She ended up walking out and saying I didn't have her back, and she wasn't going to work for someone that didn't have her back. Now, I don't know. I grew up in a different world. I'm 47. And when you make mistakes, you take responsibility for the mistake. You apologize at the soonest possible time to apologize. And you take responsibility, and then you move on. You ask for forgiveness, make a new request. So I just think that we are in this place where we've tried to make everybody so comfortable. And it's many things. It's the helicopter parents. It's the every need is being taken care of. It's the trophy prize. Like everybody gets a trophy no matter if you win or you lose. And it's this idea that words can be violence, or if you are upset by someone else's words. And I think that's the most dangerous part. We can see all around the country right now, even our Pam Bondi, who's supposed to be the highest law of the land, the other day was like, it's dangerous to confuse hate speech with freedom of speech. And no, error has space, breathing room in this country. You have to be able to say what's wrong. You have to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And someone could be offended that I say formula is better. I mean, breast milk is better than formula. They can be offended. They can feel regret. They can feel remorse. People can be offended that I say feeding your children ultra processed foods will have them have a lower IQ, have more susceptible to ADHD, and blah, 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 blah. They can feel offended, but only in that feeling offended can they examine their choices. And I used that example earlier. My husband saying I'm on my phone too much, and the kids are talking to me and I'm not hearing it. That did offend me. It did hurt my feelings. I did want to justify how much work I'm doing and how much responsibility I take on, and that you don't have to do any of that responsibility. And I create this container and blah. I wanted to say all that. But the truth is my kids don't care about that.
Amen.
And 100 years ago, keeping the wolves at bay might have meant going outside of the cave, or 100 years ago, thousands of years ago, and fighting a wolf. And today it might mean me making posts on Instagram and transferring money and making trades and selling some things online or whatever those things are, that's what keeping the wolves at bay are. But the children can see you fighting a wolf. When you're just staring at your phone, something's more important than them.
Yeah.
And so my husband was absolutely right. And it hurt my feelings. Lots of things hurt my feelings. And I get to take that in, look at it, examine, is that true? Am I reactionary? And sometimes people do things that hurt my feelings and I still think that they are wrong and I am right. But I get to examine, why am I hurt by this? Is this a repeating thing in my life? Have I done this before and now this is happening again? This feels familiar. How do I want to be different in my next interaction? How am I responsible? Even though I think they are wrong and I am right in that context, I brought that to me. I'm 100% responsible for my life. Everything that happens, there's no power any place except for I am 100% responsible. And the problem is that we have made a world where people think the government is responsible, Instagram is responsible, their parents are responsible, everybody else is responsible except for them. Our parents did the best that they could. And some people picked the small straw when they were up in heaven and they dived down into this body. I
believe you chose that still.
But you chose that. I do believe that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying all parents' best that they could do is equal. It's not. There is no equal. There is no equity. We all came here. We are all a soul having a human experience. And if we don't observe what it feels like to be uncomfortable, and we don't do the hard thing even when it's wrong. I mean, even when it's right, we don't do the hard thing. We do the easy thing that's wrong. We will learn that lesson somewhere later in life. We've all taken a shortcut. We have all done the easy thing, and it has come back to slap us in the face 10 times harder. And some of us, and I believe that when you don't know you're doing what's wrong, there's less of a slap in the face. But when you know consciously and you do it, it comes back so quickly. And so I think that we need to do hard things on purpose. For example, when I'm flying, I don't go through that radiator thing that swings around, and I don't let them take a picture of my face. Yep. Do I not think there's not 1,000 other cameras in the airport? Yes. Do I not think that my phone and my laptop and my iPad are giving me the same radiation probably that thing is? Yes. But it's an authority telling me to do something, and I have to say no in front of people publicly. I have to be an inconvenience. My moral stand has to be an inconvenience. Now, you might say, well, that's so dumb. Like, it doesn't matter. They're taking your picture and your phone is radiating you. No, well, it does matter because I'm practicing the muscle of saying no when it's inconvenient, when it's embarrassing, when you're inconveniencing other people because you don't want to. And if we don't have that muscle be strong, whether we're a farmer, whether we travel for a living, that muscle is not strong, we will collapse under any pressure to do something we don't want to do. And we watched it societally.
Yep.
So I literally always say no. And it's so annoying to people I'm flying with. It's so annoying and I actually think they are instructed, or there's some cultural thing in TSA to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I've had the same joke told in different cities everywhere. Oh, she probably just likes being pat down. She's probably a lesbian. She probably likes it. So,
like by TSA agents saying that out loud? No
yes.
shit.
And so
wild.
I think that they want, oh, look at this one. She thinks she's, somehow avoiding radiation. She thinks it's unhealthy. And and this is what I always say. Well, why do you direct children, dogs, and pregnant women to go through the metal detector instead? Why?
Right.
I just have a question. Like, if it's perfectly safe, if you are going to take a picture of me and you're erasing it right away, why do you have to take a picture of me?
Right.
I don't believe you're erasing it right away.
Right.
Now, is there 1,000 other pictures of me from my driver's license, from everywhere I go? Yes. But I think we need to practice being uncomfortable and saying no to authority. And
this is a perfect example of convenience. Like, this is what I'm talking about, whether it's convenience. I think it's three things. Convenience, safety, and security are what the government and the system and the multinational yes, it's those three things that they're offering that lead to our freedom slowly being eroded over time.
Was it Benjamin Franklin who said freedom and security can't exist in the same place?
Makes sense, yeah.
So I don't remember what to say, but it's something like those who want freedom cannot expect safety, and those that want safety will never have freedom, something like that. But so I think that being uncomfortable, so cold plunging, going to the gym and working out, growing food, doing things that are hard and uncomfortable as a practice, I think is important. Because, and I think standing up for your principles, even if it's not going to be good for you as a practice, is important. Yep. And I was in Washington, D.C. for this thing at the Heritage Foundation, and we were at dinner, and there was people talking, and someone said that there was a statistic that less than 10% of people will do the right thing just for the sake of doing the right thing, or because if it's going to negatively impact them, whether it's their public persona or they're financially. Less than 10% of people do the right thing. I would like it to be that 100% of the people do the right thing, no matter if someone's watching or not watching, and whether it hurts your public persona or not, hurts your finances or not. Because if that was the case, we would not be enslaved.
Amen.
It's only that we are all doing things we know are not right.
Right.
Or we're willfully ignorant on purpose. Because everybody could know how the money system works. So if everybody tomorrow knew how money worked, do you think they'd still go to work? And the banks just print money and you're working so hard and then your neighbor goes and buys a house?
Most people would.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
The money system is a lie, the biggest lie ever perpetrated upon us. But it's so well orchestrated. Like, I live in community, and the main issue of living in community is that people come to the community, but then they want money like if they were living in the outside world, and they want freedom like they were living in the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
When we lived in community in the past, water, shelter, food, shared childcare, shared elder care, that was all that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's this beast that needs to be fed constantly. And so it's very hard to live in community, because how can you live on 200 acres and make enough for everybody to make $100,000 to $200,000 a year?
Right.
You can't. But what are we buying with that $200,000 a year? And then the person who's paying the mortgage on that land and trying so hard to bring this community into fruition is like, what? We're trying so hard to do this. But I understand the other person's like, I want to have a family. I want a bigger house. I want this. I want that. So I understand both sides, but we will have to give up some of the I conversation and surrender it to the we conversation and not in a socialist kind of way.
Yeah, not a communist socialist way.
But in a way of like, if we want to have these resilient communities, because I was thinking, like, what if we got 10 people and they all put in $100 and something thousand, my land would be totally paid off.
Yep.
That would be epic, right? And then, but how do you get 10 people that are morally aligned and da-da-da-da? Right now, the system is more like you can come and you get free food and free shelter and free this, and you can work, but it's farm labor or restaurant labor, so you're not making tons of money.
Right.
And you have to see the value as the organic food and the raw milk and the eggs and the meat and the vegetables and all of that. But that disappears so quickly, and people start to go, I'm only making this much money. But my friend Mark was saying in the military, like every 6 months, they used to have this meeting when he was in the Air Force, and they would basically show them all the stuff they were getting for free and what their friends were getting paid, and then be like, oh, so your friend's making $56,000 a year and you think and you're only getting $1,000 a month. Well, he's paying for this. We pay for this. He does not he only has $643 left over at the end of the month, and you have $1,000 left over at the end of the month. And he said that they did that every 6 months because it does disappear, and people in the military started like, I'm doing all this for $1,000, and the rent and the food and all those things disappear.
Healthcare, all the things.
All the things disappear. And so I don't really want to do a meeting where I'm like breaking that down for people, but we do have to figure out a way that in this money beast that's just constantly inflating and inflating and inflating, and there's no way to beat it, how do we create some sovereignty and create some community where everybody feels taken care of? But it's going to mean being uncomfortable in certain ways. It's going to mean seeing things and wanting them and not getting to get them. And that's hard because we live in a world where we see it, we want it. I want that new supplement, $50 supplement. I want that new tennis shoes, grounding shoes, whatever. Like, we want it. I want it. I want.
Yeah. You know, that another thing related to discomfort that I thought about, especially when it comes to parenting too, is like, I don't know, I grew up in a pretty traumatic environment, and I'm grateful for it on the back end of that, because I feel like it shaped me in many ways, because I recognize it as a catalyst for positive change. And it's like, I don't know, I've just thought about this, like raising my kids, and I'm not going to say that they've never been exposed to trauma, nor like I ever yelled at my kids because I erupted and I'm like feeling guilty afterwards because I'm like, oh, I just yelled at them. But I've never laid a hand on them, right? And never cussed at them or anything like that. But it's like raising them in a way where we're giving them so much comfort, trying to provide for them so much. is that actually doing them a disservice in some way because they're not exposed to challenging things?
I grew up in a non-trauma household, like no trauma. I never saw my parents fight. They didn't. My mom did hit me some. My dad hit me a couple times, but I was definitely asking for it. I was definitely like, I was an older kid and I was pushing the envelope. And I know what I was doing was they were traveling a lot and working a lot, and I was just trying to get some attention, and I went about it the wrong way. But no real trauma. Yes, I was hit, but not beat. I was never beaten. My dad never yelled at my mother. My dad and mom loved each other. They kissed and hugged, and I grew up in a happy and healthy household. But we did do stuff. My parents struggled with their business, and we had to help with the business. That was not an option. So we were dragged to craft shows and trade shows. And I mean, at a young age, I'm like running around the Jacob Javits Center and, setting up booths and I was like 13 the first time I was doing the microphone at like trade shows, talking about what the models were wearing for the buyers at the different clothing stores. Like I worked, and that started at farmers markets to craft shows to trade shows to my mom being in like 600 stores with her clothing across the country. But we worked. And so we were uncomfortable in that way. We had to do stuff. And this is a big thing. My husband's father went off to work. And then when he came home, he was just with the family. And then when the kids got older, they would go to work with him. And they for sure had trauma and all the stuff. But work was not in the household. And so this is a way that we see life very differently. I feel like we need our kids to work with us more.
Yeah.
And he feels like we need more time to be with our kids. And we're both correct. They need to work with us.
It can be a mix of both.
A mix of both.
Yeah.
But I've got my kids washing tables, wiping down tables, setting tables. Even my 5-year-old is setting tables in the restaurant, everybody's helping with the pumpkin patch, helping with the craft house. Like everybody's working and putting in. I mean, you saw my son during Confluence. He made like $400 and he started his meat rabbit business from selling popsicles. Dedicated 12 hours a day. He was selling popsicles at Confluence. And so my kids do hard stuff for the family business, and I think that helps.
So it's more about doing hard things that they don't necessarily want to do rather than as being like exposed to traumatic shit.
Yeah, I don't think that they need to be. And I'm not saying I don't never have yelled or my husband has never yelled. We don't hit our children, but we for sure have yelled, and we for sure had. Sometimes I think we're having a conversation that they can't tell we're fighting. Like the other day,
they can get it energetically though. They know.
We're like having this conversation, and they're in the back, and they're talking about Pokemon and like all of the thing. And all of a sudden, like my daughter, who's very perceptive, like when she was 5 years old, one time we were in the shower, me and my husband and her and the baby Soul, and I was trying to like get ready quick, and me and my husband were. And she said, "Daddy, what do you love about Mom?" And he was like didn't want to say nothing. He loved me. And I thought, she's so perceptive at 5. But so all of a sudden I realized her head had like been leaned up, like was in our conversation. And we were having a little tiff, but we were quiet and in the front of the car, and they were all in the back of the family van. She's very perceptive. We can't have any. And my 2-year-old will any energetic thing. "Mommy, you sad?" "No, I'm not sad." Like, "No, I'm fine." But she's very perceptive. She knows, though. So she knows. But I don't think we need to expose our children to trauma.
No, and I want to be clear here. I wasn't saying like, hey, you need to like beat the shit out of someone or like get in a gunfight in front of your kid.
But my husband does a little bit feel like our kids are growing up too comfortable.
See, that's what I'm getting at. And that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
I'm saying that if you look at me and Rylan, we're both like well-grounded, working on personal self-growth and development. Entrepreneurial, and we grew up in a house where there wasn't a lot of trauma, and so but there was a lot of work, and it was family together at the farmers market, and then as that evolved into craft shows and family together at the craft shows, and then trade shows, and then by the time I was 17 I was flying to a different city and setting up and breaking down a trade show, and my dad and mom were in a different city. So I think that having a family business that everybody can be in and do part of and feel like they're making a difference is really good. And my parents were not big on giving us money. It was always work for money.
Mhm.
The more responsibility you take on, the more freedom you get. That was always the messaging.
I feel like when we look at nature, I guess just touching on nature when it comes to this idea of discomfort with kids, like, I don't know, when you look at mammals, when they're young, they definitely play a lot. Like there's a lot of play involved. And I think we could have a whole separate conversation on like what education looks like for kids. And I'm very grateful that our little alternative school that our kids go to has a lot of play involved. It's like play-based learning. Because if you look at nature, that's what's happening. And our kids are definitely not being indoctrinated by the government, which is great. I know your kids do like homeschooling on your property, which is really cool. But I don't know, just like when we look at nature, obviously you've thought about this when it comes to discomfort. There's a lot of discomfort inherently involved. So I think that's a given, right? Like nature is literally having to, I won't say fend for itself. There is symbiosis, like especially mammals, they are mostly pack creatures in some way or communal creatures, and they are all caring for each other. But there is discomfort, but it's like,
I mean, 100% of the day, there's discomfort. If you're a cow in a field, it's hot or it's cold.
Hot as
like,
shit.
What percentage of the year is it the perfect temperature? It's hot outside, it's cold outside.
Right.
And the babies are playing for sure, but at a very young age, they have to start to graze. They have to start to find their food. They have to go, they're nursing, but they're also going to have to find water, and their mothers are teaching them that. So to teach our children how to fend in the world from a young age is totally normal.
Yeah.
That's happening from almost birth with mammals. And of course, the playing is happening. And the playing is really learning how to run, learning how to fight, learning how to hunt, depending on what the mammal is. And so, and nothing is hidden. Everything in nature is out in the open. And we value privacy, and I think that's totally okay. We should value privacy specifically from the government. But when it comes to our children, I think we want them to see us vulnerable, see us uncomfortable, see us struggling, but also see us being resilient in that. And that, so they understand that life is hard and life gets better, that there's seasons. And I
think with that, like the really important, I won't say caveat, but addition to that is that like the more we as human beings are choosing to do the intentional hard things and are disciplined enough to do it, the more we are naturally more emotionally regulated. I'm not going to claim like anyone is perfect, nor that I'm perfect, but the more we're naturally emotionally regulated because we're consistently choosing the harder things, which trains us to be able to accept hard things and still find our center within them. So when we're showing our kids our vulnerability, it's not we're fucking just like melting down, screaming in front of them like we're all screwed, like, we're all going to hell, like this sucks, society's over, or like, like I'm financially fucked. Like, and if anyone's ever done that, don't shame yourself. But you see what I'm saying though? It's like the more we're choosing the discomfort piece, the more we're naturally going to embody and show what it's like to be vulnerable, but not like go off the rails and lose it in front of our kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes when my husband's parenting in a way that I don't agree with in the moment, I don't ever disagree with him in front of the children. But later I'll sometimes say like, what is it that you're wanting to provide? Like just what was because I want to know, like, is that a reaction or is there some thought out plan that I don't know about? And so I do think that it matters how we react and how we respond. But I think that we're all indoctrinating our kids. We cannot help it. Like so it's the government is indoctrinating them or we're indoctrinating them. That is just the reality. Mm-hmm. The other morning, my son says to me, look, those are God's clouds and those are the government's clouds. Can you remind me why they're spraying us with chemicals in the clouds? My 5-year-old, right? Can you remind me? And, he came up to me last night and he said, do you remember when we lived in California? I said, yeah. And he goes, and we had lots of money. I said, yeah, that's what you felt like. He was like, yeah. In Texas, there's just less money. I said, that's my experience too, but I'm trying to shift that, honey. Right. And he was like, do you think it's because we went to Walmart and got too many toys? I said, no, it's definitely not because we went to Walmart and got too many toys. But, so they're always learning. So what I got out of that conversation was I got to be mindful about how I speak about money because I have 4 little brains that are also co-creating our life, that are here with us. And if they are thinking we don't have enough money, then there's extra brains co-creating we don't have enough money.
Right.
And that's fully coming out of my mouth, right? That's coming me saying, hey, we're mommy and daddy, we're going through a little hard time. We're not going to go get toys until Christmas or whatever. And I thought how I explained it was fine. But now that I see how it's coming out of a 5-year-old, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to communicate that different, because I want them to be co-creating a positive future. And the other day, Luna said, what would have to happen for me to get a blue golf cart? And I said, if my book sells 1 million copies, you could have a blue golf cart. She said, I'm totally going to manifest that. I said, great, do that.
That's so cute.
So, we have to remember that they are also co-creating our world. Their thoughts, speech, beliefs, and actions and attitudes are out picturing our reality all together, right? We are a unit. We live in the same field. And so we want to be mindful in how we interact with them and what we are indoctrinating their subconscious to be out picturing, because it will not only be out picturing our life right now, but as they get older, it'll out picture their life if they choose to move off the farm and be somewhere else. So we're all indoctrinating, and we just want to be mindful. And my parents literally indoctrinated me that your thought, speech, belief, actions, and attitudes create your life. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
That was the underlying of every single conversation, every single argument, every single time I was upset. They would remind me who's responsible.
Yeah, that's what we're charged to do for our kids. So it's like, it's the balance of being authentic. Like if you're sad, don't try to lie to your kid and say, hey, I'm like, put a smile on. They're going to know energetically. But it's also having to, again, be that one who has cultivated resilience emotionally, mentally, so that you're not dumping on your kids, so that you're not bleeding all of your, toxic guilt, toxic shame, toxic anxiety, toxic whatever onto them perpetually. Okay. I want to talk about death. Talked about it a little bit, but this is a big theme in your book, like death being a teacher and death being just the flip side of life. I know that you started really learning the importance of embracing death as you started shifting out of this vegan paradigm when becoming a farmer. But just share with me your thoughts on death now as it pertains to when we look at nature, what that has taught you about death as part of life.
Death is treated as a failure. It's treated in our culture as a failure. It means something is wrong. But there is no life without death. And so upon that realization, my very first cow, who I've talked a lot about, I've written a lot about, and I still have her, we're going to cull her on Tuesday. And I could almost cry, like talking about it. But she's not doing well in Texas. She's struggling in the heat. She's needing a lot of extra care. She doesn't want to be milked. Her baby can't nurse on her because her udder is so low, and on and on and on. She's had 3 generations. I have her daughter, her granddaughter, and her great-granddaughter on the farm. She's contributed to the nourishment of my children, and she's had a great life. She's 8 years old, and we're going to cull her. And I'm sad about it, but it's not a failure. Like, her life was a success. She's put her genetics out into the future. Her offspring are there. She nourished her family. She licked her babies. She cared for her children. She nursed her children. Like, she had a great life, and she's not thriving in Texas anymore. But I'm still struggling with that because my relationship with death is still impacted by culture that raised me to think that death is a failure. But it's literally, there's no life without death. There's no sanctity. There's no sacredness in, if we can just, and that's what they're trying to get us to do, just put our consciousness into a computer and live forever. But there's no sacredness in that. There's something sacred about the finite amount of time that we're here. My best friend died at 37 years old. And we spent so much time talking about how we'd be old ladies sitting on the porch, sipping iced tea and lemonade and watching our great-grandchildren. And we had all these imaginings of building a community and an artist colony and all these things, right? But we worked so hard, and she spent so much time away from her daughter, building our restaurants, building this empire. And before the empire even really was a financial benefit to her, she died.
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped being able to work around the time her daughter was 5 years old, and she died cancer around 9 years old. And she does not have the privilege of getting old. And is that a failure? No, I believe that her soul came into this life with that agreement and like there was some major lesson for her to learn in that. But I also recognize the privilege of every wrinkle. Do I get some confronted like, oh, I'm aging, I don't look like I used to look? Of course. But I remind myself she's never going to get wrinkles. She's never going to get old. She's never going to see her daughter walk down the aisle. She's 37, tapped out. And so death is the reminder of the sanctity of life. And it is only on the back of death that every bite of food that we eat, every organism, everything is eating something else. And so there's no life without death. And if we act like it's a failure, we try to create systems in which no death ever happens, they're actually not systems filled with life. If you ever gone to an animal rescue, I mean, I've done a lot of or like seen these chimpanzees in cages that are not allowed to have babies, but they got displaced from wherever. It's the saddest thing you've ever seen. You see a herd of cows and they all have babies, and then the next year they all have babies, and do those calves go off to get fed out or get harvested? Yes, but life goes on. The cow is still connected to the soil. They have a new baby. The daughters are making granddaughters, and the steers are going off to become meat and nourishing the community. That's actually life thriving. And I was just talking to Will Harris last weekend about this. He used to do in-stores at Whole Foods, and he'd say women would go, how could you kill? I love my dog. I don't know how you could do it. And he said something very wise. He said, most people's relationship to animals is the one that they have with their pet, their dog, their cat, their parrot, their fish. Our relationship, farmers' relationship, is much more complicated. There is livestock, and there's flora, and there is fauna, and there is making decisions for genetics, and there is feeding your family and feeding the greater community. And the animals and there's guardian dogs and livestock dogs, and the animals that we are responsible for are in a whole system. And it's very different than how you feel about Puffy or Fluffy or whoever. And I came into it as a vegan with the puffy, fluffy idea, and I treated every cow. And why I'm having such a hard time with Una is because when I got Una, I was still having the relationship of pet. And so I have that kind of love for Una that I haven't maybe have that same kind of love for cows that I got after her. It's a responsibility and a commitment, but a different kind of attachment. But farmers have a much more complex relationship with life and death than the average person does. And
I think much more realistic.
Much more realistic.
Much more reality-based, let's put it that way.
But
nature-based.
We look around, everything is about avoiding death.
Mm-hmm.
And except for abortion. And so everything is, and of course it's in our DNA to avoid death. Like that is our survival instinct. But there is no magic world where people don't die. I mean, we all saw the Peter Thiel interview where he has asked if the human race should survive, and he pauses for a very, very long time and then says, well, maybe we can shift into something where we put our consciousness into a machine and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I think that takes the sanctity of life away.
Mm.
And that death, in our relationship to death, we can appreciate life so much more. And we all know that when we are unconscious, it is because we have forgotten the finiteness of life. When we're not spending enough time with our children, when we're not being as attentive to our wives, we have forgotten the finite. If our wife or our husband said, I don't want to be with you anymore, all of a sudden we'd get very committed to that being a priority, right? And so, but we need to act like life is finite. And if life is finite and we could die tomorrow, and we all could, what do we want to do today? And so if we treat every day with that level of sanctity, then we're going to live a life worth living that's in alignment with truth and God. But if you think you're going to be as cyborg as you want to be and put your brain into a computer, you may not really appreciate the sanctity of life.
Amen. Amen. So well said. Okay, to wrap up, one final question, and I want to share before you answer this one. If this book sounds interesting so far, I promise you it is. And we're going to be doing a book club with the Way Forward Platinum members. So if you want to come read the book with us, have Mollie show up to talk about the book a little bit, you can just join via the link in the show notes. But as a final question, this is a big one, and let's see if you can answer it in like 4 minutes.
Okay, great.
When we look at nature, we just talked about death. When we look at nature, what do you derive to be the purpose of life when we look at nature?
To move life forward. Reproduction. Every mammal, every being almost, but every mammal for sure prioritizes food, water, and reproduction, and then maybe shelter, depending. Not all mammals need shelter. Some do, some don't. We have largely abandoned reproduction, water, and food. And we've gotten very good at shelter. We're amazing at shelter and by extension, comfort. So I think that we need to reintegrate ourselves with nature and remember what our purpose is. And our purpose is to bring life forth. Our purpose, my purpose as a woman was and is to bring life from the other side through my body and into this world. And that is all of nature's job, to bring life forth. And so that is not just in making a baby, but also in how we interact with nature. And we are highly disconnected. And I believe that in reconnecting with nature, we can remember our purpose. And we can be here on this planet with purpose, with divinity, and create a future. And we don't have to have this dystopian future that everybody's asking us to co-create. Right now, we can step onto land as the keystone species, reconnect with nature, remember our purpose, and act completely in alignment and create a future that nobody is showing us on Netflix shows. But we don't have to buy this dystopian future. We get to choose. And I choose to reconnect with God through nature, expressing all the time.
Beautiful. Boom. Okay. I would say that I wish we had more time. I think we went like 3.5 hours on this though. I could talk to you all day. You're one of my best friends. I really appreciate you so much and the work that you do in this world, the person that you are in this world, the woman that you are in this world, not the, yeah. Sincerely though, like it's an honor to co-create Confluence with you, to have this conversation with you, to call you a friend, to call you a colleague. I'm not a farmer. I'd like to get there one day, but colleague in that we produce an incredible festival together once a year. Hopefully we'll do it more than once a year at some point, but it's a lot of work. But I just appreciate you so much, Mollie. So is there anything else you want to share as we close up?
I love you, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. And I'll keep defending you out there when people call you I don't know, people are always trying to tell me that you're a psyop or you're whatever.
I got tranny recently, so that's
you and Woody Harrelson are always like, they're psyop. I mean, they're planned opposition.
Yeah, controlled opposition. It's hilarious, but yeah, I love you.
I love you. I'm so grateful for our friendship.
Me too.